Naruto Reborn Wind Shadow, attack the country of fire in the beginning chapter 161 to 180. Mount Myoboku. Since the Hidden Cloud and Hidden Stone villages ceased their attacks on the Hidden Leaf village, Minato Namikaze and Jiraiya came to Mount Myoboku, where they trained in Sage Jutsu under the guidance of Lord Fukasaku. During this process, Minato Namikaze displayed a talent that astonished Fukasaku. Jiraiya had been training for over a decade, and even now, he hadn't perfectly mastered Sage Mode. Yet, Minato Namikaze completely mastered it in less than 2 weeks. This made Fukasaku exclaim in disbelief. However, although Minato Namikaze could be said to have mastered Sage Mode and sensed its power, he didn't feel happy about it. Instead, he felt somewhat troubled. Because he discovered that Sage Mode didn't seem to mesh well with his combat style. Minato wasn't like his teacher Jiraiya, an attack-type ninja who mainly used ninjutsu. Therefore, the increase in ninjutsu power from Sage Jutsu wasn't very useful to Minato. Secondly, Minato's primary combat style now was using the Flying Thunder God technique in conjunction with the Rasengan and ninja tools, like an assassin, to instantly kill enemies. But Sage Mode required time to gather natural energy, and its duration was only 5 minutes. One emphasized speed, while the other emphasized slowness. With the time it took to gather natural energy, Minato could have already swept across a battlefield using the Flying Thunder God technique. From this perspective, Sage Mode was quite useless to Minato. But Minato couldn't give up on Sage Mode, because he told Lord Fukasaku about his troubles, and Lord Fukasaku said something that he would never forget. Minato, only Sage Jutsu can counter Sage Jutsu. Understanding Lord Fukasaku's meaning, Minato began to continue training in Sage Mode. However, this time, he began to focus his Sage Mode training on the development of the Rasengan ninjutsu. Ever since Minato developed the Rasengan, he had realized that the Rasengan he had developed was only the most basic form, and there were more complex forms, which involved incorporating chakra nature transformations into it. Minato had tried it before, but due to some side effects, Minato temporarily gave up. For example, he had once tried to incorporate wind-styled chakra nature transformation into the Rasengan, but because of the instability of wind-styled chakra, it caused terrible damage to his arm. If it weren't for Kushina, his entire arm would have been ruined. However, since Minato began to master Sage Jutsu, he found that his control over chakra had become more stable. So, he began to refocus his training on the development of the Rasengan's nature transformations. Dragon Oasis. In the desert on the edge, Yokai, one of the 2 major combat forces of the Hidden Sand Village, was also training in Sage Jutsu here. Because her secret technique, Scorch Release, was too special, the scorching heat would destroy the forests that had barely grown in the small courtyard she had built. Therefore, she could only come here to practice her secret technique. After more than half a month of training, Yokai had now independently completed the ability to sense, absorb, and control Sage Jutsu energy. Then, the next step was the development of techniques, incorporating Sage Jutsu energy into the techniques. As Yokai's proud secret technique, Scorch Release was naturally the focus of her development. Unlike Minato's very incompatible combat style, Yokai's Scorch Release and Sage Jutsu energy could be said to be a perfect match. First of all, the existence of Sage Jutsu energy greatly increased the time Yokai could use Scorch Release. Especially her most powerful move, Scorch Release Chakra Mode. In the past, when it was first developed, she could only use it for 5 minutes at most, and the chakra in her body would be somewhat unsustainable. After all, she wasn't a tailed beast, and being able to develop a Scorch Release Chakra Mode like the tailed beast cloak required the power of Star Release Chakra to squeeze the potential of her body. But now, with Sage Jutsu energy, when she used Scorch Release Chakra Mode, the original chakra consumption was directly reduced by 1/3. The reason was also very simple. Yokai couldn't simply use Sage Jutsu energy now. She still could only mix Sage Jutsu energy and chakra, just like the Sage Jutsu of the 3 great sacred places. And this ratio, after Yokai's experiments and the guidance of Togoriheim, achieved a perfect match at a ratio of 2 to 1. Simply put, it used to take 3 parts of chakra to use 1 part of scorch release chakra power. But now it only took 2 parts, with 1 part being replaced by sage jutsu energy. And the gentleness of sage jutsu energy also greatly improved yokai's control over scorch release, reducing unnecessary consumption. Now, yokai's time using scorch release chakra mode has tripled. From 5 minutes to 15 minutes. This may still seem like a short time, but from another perspective, you can see how remarkable this progress is. That is, the current yokai is 3 times stronger than she used to be. And that's an understatement, because, with the help of Sage Jutsu Energy's chakra absorption properties, yokai has also improved her defensive ability in the Scorch Release chakra state, especially against ninjutsu attacks. She has achieved a certain degree of immunity. In addition, the vitality of Sage Jutsu Energy has also improved her own vitality, making up for some of the deficiencies in her body, and greatly improving her physical fitness. The most obvious thing is that, as a woman, yokai can clearly find that her skin seems to be getting better and better. Finally, yokai also learned the Dragon Cave's Sage Jutsu, inorganic reincarnation from Togorihime. This is definitely the most suitable Sage Jutsu for yokai. She can give life to the flames she controls, allowing them to transform into different forms to attack. This makes up for the problem of yokai's single attack method. She has developed various techniques with this, turning her flames into all kinds of creatures, greatly increasing the destructive power and attack power of her scorch release. And on the other side of the Dragon Oasis, Mikawa, who is also one of the 2 major combat forces of the Hidden Sand Village, has also successfully mastered Sage Jutsu Energy, and his strength has been greatly improved. The focus of his development is naturally on his Kekkei Genkei, magnet release. Like yokai, after mastering Sage Jutsu Energy, Mikawa gained similar abilities. Including, the power of his magnet release has also been greatly improved. In addition to controlling the range and weight of iron sand, the control of iron sand is also more free. The chakra absorption ability of Sage Jutsu Energy has also greatly improved the defensive power of iron sand. Secondly, the vitality of Sage Jutsu Energy has also made him, who is already in his 30s, feel like he has returned to his 20s. Then, he also learned a Dragon Cave Sage Jutsu from Togorihime. However, unlike yokai, Mikawa chose object transformation. This allowed Mikawa to get rid of the need for iron sand. Even if there wasn't much iron sand in his environment, he could still directly use chakra to create iron sand through the ability of object transformation. Finally, unlike yokai, who couldn't bring herself to ask Rasa for advice because of her pride, Mikawa didn't mind asking Rasa for advice and gained a lot of inspiration in the development of magnet release and Sage Jutsu Energy. Just then, the Hidden Cloud Village and the Hidden Stone Village finally stopped hiding and mobilized their ninjas to rush towards the Land of Wind. And the reason for the Hidden Cloud Village and the Hidden Stone Village's urgency was because the cooperation between the Hidden Sand Village, the Land of Demons, and the Akatsuki organization was revealed. After Iwagakure and Kumogakure revised their strategic objectives, shifting their attention from Konoha to Sunagakure, both the Tsuchikage of Iwagakure and the Reikage of Kumogakure discovered that things were not developing as they had anticipated. In their assumptions, as the bottom ranked of the 5 great ninja villages, they believed that with a little trickery and pressure on Sunagakure, the Kazekage would compromise with Iwagakure and Kumogakure as he had done before. However, as they implemented their plans step by step, they were met with repeated setbacks. Not only did the ninjas they sent to Sunagakure fail to obtain any useful information from the village, but also their every action proved fruitless. Whether it was provocation using their own ninjas' lives as a poison pill, or exerting pressure on Sunagakure in conjunction with the daimyo, Sunagakure resolved them one by one. This made the 2 cages of Iwagakure and Kumogakure increasingly uneasy about the young Kazekage and Sunagakure. In particular, the calmness displayed by the young Kazekage made both sides feel strange. Originally, they wanted to wait a little longer, to see if there would be any variables. For example, would Konoha, which had a deep-seated hatred for Sunagakure, enter the fray, or would there be other variables? However, the latest intelligence from Sunagakure made them realize that they could no longer wait. Firstly, Sanagakure had formed an alliance with the Land of Demons, with the Land of Demons hiring Sanagakure's ninjas to protect it. This meant that, at least for a long time to come, the biggest problem hindering Sanagakure's development, military expenditure, had been greatly alleviated. Secondly, news from a megacure, from within the organization called Akatsuki, indicated that Akatsuki and Sanagakure had reached a cooperation agreement. Akatsuki's ninjas would help Sanagakure deal with Iwagakure and Kumogakure in the form of mercenaries. The two great ninja villages were naturally aware of Akatsuki's existence. After all, Akatsuki had made its presence known several times during this war. Although Akatsuki was considered a very weak existence in the eyes of behemoths like the two great ninja villages, its alliance with Sanagakure still made both villages feel uneasy. They didn't know what other tricks the young Kazekage would pull, so they had to act decisively before that happened. Therefore, under a certain tacit understanding, Iwagakure and Kumogakure began to mobilize the ninjas originally stationed in the Land of Fire, and began to advance towards the Land of Wind. As for whether the two sides felt unwilling to abandon Konoha, into which they had invested so much energy and so many ninjas for half a year? Of course, they did. But it was still within the acceptable range of Iwagakure and Kumogakure. Among the 5 great ninja villages, maintaining the balance of power between them was also one of the purposes of war, rather than completely destroying the other. Now, they could be said to have achieved this goal. After half a year of war, Konoha, which had even sent children to the battlefield, could be said to have suffered heavy losses and would not recover for several years. This was also the reason why Iwagakure and Kumogakure had to launch an attack on Sanagakure. The secret rise of Sanagakure had already begun to disrupt this balance. Therefore, in these 2 days, on the territories of the small countries sandwiched between the Land of Wind, the Land of Earth, the Land of Lightning, and Konoha, the figures of ninjas became active once again. The ninjas of Iwagakure and Kumogakure were busily preparing for this war. The ninjas of Konoha were also quietly lurking aside, waiting for an opportunity to appear. The figures of the Kurigakure ninjas also appeared, constantly probing the movements of the entire ninja world. It was just that, to everyone's surprise, Sanagakure, the protagonist of this war, unexpectedly behaved very calmly, as if everything that was happening outside had nothing to do with them. Land of Wind, Sanagakure. Because of Sanagakure's recent vigorous development, more and more outsiders entered Sanagakure, inevitably bringing news from the outside world into Sanagakure. In addition to ordinary people who came to Sanagakure to escape the war and merchants who came to Sanagakure to make a fortune, spies from various countries and ninja villages were naturally indispensable. Their purpose here was not only to spread information about Sanagakure, but also to take the opportunity to cause some damage within Sanagakure. It's just that, what they found incomprehensible was, the outside world was about to turn upside down, and everyone could feel the tense atmosphere. But inside Sanagakure, everything seemed as calm as if nothing had changed. Not only were the ninjas inside Sanagakure still performing their tasks as usual, but the higher-ups of Sanagakure also didn't seem to be mobilizing ninjas to prepare for defense. This made these spies feel puzzled. They could of course see that, in fact, it wasn't just them who were puzzled. Even the villagers and ninjas inside Sanagakure were also a little unclear about what the village was doing. It was clear that Iwagakure and Kumogakure had already made it clear that they were going to start a war against Sanagakure, but the village still didn't make any movements. Could it be that they were going to surrender directly? Everyone knew that this was impossible. Just when everyone was wondering, a message said to have been spoken personally by Maki, the head of the Anbu, spread throughout Sanagakure. Tell everyone in the village not to think wildly. All they need to know is that the Kazekage-sama has made complete preparations. The only winner in this war will be our Sanagakure. Of course, many people were still doubtful, but Rosha's prestige accumulated over the past year and the success of his actions time and time again still allowed the villagers of Sanagakure to temporarily relax. However, these spies couldn't calm down and immediately spread the news. This time, the leaders of the various ninja villages who received the information frowned. They couldn't help but hesitate. It was really Rosha's 2 actions against Konoha that made everyone wary of this young Kazekage. Could it be that this Kazekage has another trick up his sleeve? But no matter how hard the third Tsuchikage and the third Raikage racked their brains, they couldn't think of what means this Kazekage could have that would make him so confident in the face of the joint attack of Iwagakure and Kumogakure. However, they still believed in one thing. That is, in the face of absolute power, any conspiracy or trick is useless. Acting mysteriously, Wang tell the ninjas on the front line to immediately launch an attack on the Land of Wind. I want to see what tricks this brat has. Yes. As the ninjas of Iwagakure moved, the ninjas of Kumogakure also immediately took action after receiving the news. In an instant, the entire ninja world was in chaos once again. At this time, in the Land of Wind, Sunagakure, the people of Sunagakure who received the news also gathered in the Kazekage building. Sunagakure village, the Kazekage building. Ever since Rasa told everyone about the existence of the Dragon Oasis, this was the first time everyone had gathered together again. The two elders of Sunagakure village, Chiyo and Ebizo. The Jinchuriki of the One Tail, Bunpuku. Sunagakure village's two high-ranking officials and combat forces, Pakura and Mikawa. The leader of the Anbu, Maki. Rasa's assistant, Shinga. The current head of Sunagakure village's medical department, Iris. The current head of Sunagakure village's logistics department, Ryuji. The current director of Sunagakure village's ninja hospital, Yakushimaru. The current director of Sunagakure village's orphanage, Karura. The future successor to Chiyo, Hanataba, and the successor to Ebizo, Hinoka. To maintain the secrecy of the operation, only these people were qualified to know and appear here this time. Everyone had already heard the news that Iwagakure and Kumogakure were advancing towards the Land of Wind. Everyone looked at the Kazekage-sama at the top with tense and expectant expressions, the one who had created countless miracles. Rasa also looked down at the people who could be said to hold the highest power in all aspects of Sunagakure village. Finally, he spoke his plan. Everyone, you should have heard the news outside, so I won't waste any more words. With Sunagakure village's current strength, it is almost impossible to confront Iwagakure and Kumogakure head-on. If Sunagakure village wants to win this war, there is only one way, which I call, the decapitation operation. Speaking of this, Rasa looked at Maki beside him and said, Maki, introduce the information received by the Anbu. Yes. As Maki moved, a map of the ninja world appeared in front of everyone. Maki had prepared in advance and marked the map. Please take a look, everyone. According to the information we received from the Anbu, Iwagakure and Kumogakure have mobilized a total of 16,000 ninjas, divided into 4 fronts to attack our Land of Wind. The first front, 6,000 ninjas from Iwagakure, attacking our Land of Wind from the direction of the Land of Birds, led by the 2 Jinchuriki of Iwagakure, the 5 Tails Jinchuriki, Han, and the 4 Tails Jinchuriki, Roshi. The second front, 4,000 ninjas from Kumogakure, attacking from the sea, led by Kumogakure's magnet release ninjas, Toroi and Dotai. The third front, 2,000 ninjas from Iwagakure, attacking the Land of Wind from the direction of the Land of Rain. They were transferred from the original Iwagakure ninja unit that attacked Konoha, led by Iwagakure's explosion release ninja, Gari. The fourth front, 4,000 ninjas from Kumogakure, also from the ninja unit that attacked Konoha before, launching a surprise attack on our Land of Wind from the direction of the Land of Rivers, led by Kumogakure's AB combo. Listening to Maki's narration and looking at the 4 lines on the map that surrounded the entire Land of Wind, everyone present had a bad look on their faces. Chiyo narrowed her eyes slightly and said with emotion, Iwagakure and Kumogakure are really going all out. Maki continued. Among these 4 fronts, the first front from Iwagakure is the easiest to reach the border of our Land of Wind due to geographical reasons. Although the speed is slower due to the large number of troops, it is expected to reach the border of the Land of Wind by tomorrow night. As for the third and fourth fronts, although they are currently within the Land of Fire, geographically speaking, they are relatively close to our Land of Wind, but because their supplies are slow and they are within the Land of Fire, it will take 5 days to arrive. As for the second front, it is the slowest, taking 7 days, but because they are coming by boat, both the supply and the morale of the ninjas are the most sufficient, and they will not consume too much physical strength. Kazekage-sama, that's all I have to say. Rasa nodded and looked at everyone, continuing. First of all, don't worry about the third front. I have already asked the people from the Akatsuki organization, and they will help us hold back these 2,000 Iwagakure ninjas. Hearing this, everyone breathed a slight sigh of relief. However, the remaining 14,000 ninjas are still beyond what our Sunagakure village can currently contend with. Fortunately, our enemies have given us an opportunity by choosing to split their forces. If we only deal with one front, it is still not a problem. This made Mikawa seem to understand something and say, I see, Kazekage-sama, your decapitation operation refers to gathering all the forces of our Sunagakure village to first take down one of these 4 heads, so that Iwagakure and Kumogakure will be wary. Rasa nodded in appreciation. Mikawa, you are right, but you are only half right. Half right. Except for Maki, who already knew Rasa's plan, everyone present was a little surprised, and then they heard words that made them unbelievable. It is correct to cut off one of their heads, but it is not by gathering all the forces of our Sunagakure village, but only the 3 of us, me, you, and Pakura. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Everyone present's pupils shrank, and Karura, as his wife, immediately showed incomparable tension on her face. Ebizo couldn't help but say, this won't do, it's too dangerous, Kazekage, as the village's cage, you must not put yourself in such danger alone. Rasa certainly understood that as a commander, he should not put himself in a dangerous situation, but now he had such confidence. Don't worry, Elder Ebizo, of course, I have such confidence before making such a decision. After speaking, he looked at Mikawa and Pakura, who had surprised looks on their faces, and said, what about you two? Even Namikaze Minato of Konoha could take on 100 enemies alone. Now that you have mastered Sage Art Energy, don't you even have this confidence? Pakura really couldn't stand the provocation. TCH, who would be afraid? Since Kazekage-sama, you want to go crazy, then I'll go crazy with you. Mikawa was relatively calm, but after thinking about it, he still made a decision. I understand, since Kazekage-sama, you have this confidence, as a member of the village, I naturally won't back down. Seeing that the 3 representing the village's highest combat power had decided on such a risky plan. Everyone present was a little hesitant, but in the end, Chio asked. Then, Kazekage-sama, which hand have you decided to cut off first? Rasa looked at the map, his eyes locked on the direction of the land of birds, and said. Since it is a decapitation, we naturally have to cut off the head that makes them feel the most pain. Then, there is nothing more influential on this battlefield than these 2 Jinchuriki. Everyone immediately understood that Rasa had chosen the 6,000 Iwagakure ninjas led by the 2 Jinchuriki of Iwagakure. To make our decapitation plan more successful, the village also needs to cooperate next. The 2 elders, you and Grandpa Bunpuku, will lead the ninjas in the village to meet the AB brothers of Kumogakure. Mount Myoboku. Although Minato Namikaze was still training here, ever since learning that Iwagakure and Kumogakure had officially launched their attack on Sunagakure, Minato Namikaze had been paying close attention to the movements of the ninja world. As for the source of information, it was news brought by his teacher, Jiraiya, from the village. Amidst the tall grass, Minato Namikaze was developing his new ninjutsu, which he named, Spiraling Wind Release Super Wheel Dance Hell Style 1. Although the name was somewhat uncritiquable, the destructive power displayed by this Rasengan, which incorporated wind release chakra nature transformation, surprised even Lord Fukasaku. Just then, Jiraiya, dressed in casual clothes, appeared before Minato Namikaze. Compared to Minato, who could calmly train, Jiraiya's temperament was evidently somewhat restless, so he often traveled between the village and Mount Myoboku. Seeing Jiraiya's serious expression, Minato Namikaze immediately knew that something must have happened in the outside world, and he asked anxiously. Jiraiya-sensei, has Sunagakure taken action? Yes. Jiraiya sensed his disciple's emotional change, nodded, and took out a scroll. Minato took it and immediately began to read it carefully. The intelligence stated that 2 hours ago, Sunagakure, which had been inactive, suddenly gathered 2/3 of the village's ninja and left Sunagakure at a speed that caught everyone off guard. Based on the direction they left, it could be determined that their target was the land of rivers. After reading it, Minato frowned deeply. Is Sunagakure planning to strike first? As the frontline commander of Konoha, Minato's military literacy was also very high. Based on the intelligence, he could naturally see Tsunagaku's goal at a glance. Jiraiya also nodded with a serious expression. That should be the case. From the current point of view, this is Tsunagaku's only way to break the situation. I just don't know if it will succeed. Minato looked at it, thought for a moment, and said. Since we in Konoha can receive the information, then Kumogakure and Iwagakure should be about the same. Although Iwagakure and Kumogakure are nominally united, it is impossible to expect them to share the same hatred. In other words, in a 4000 vs 4000 battle, Tsunagaku still has the advantage in high-end combat power and may very likely win. However, one thing is rather strange. Tsunagaku's target is not the Iwagakure ninja on the front line. Doesn't that mean that the interior of the Land of Wind is now empty, and the Iwagakure ninja can drive straight in? Jiraiya understood and thought for a moment before saying. Perhaps Tsunagaku feels that facing Iwagakure's 2 Jinchuriki and 4000 ninja is too risky and they are not confident in achieving a decisive victory. In that case, they would instead put themselves in an awkward situation of being attacked from both sides. Tsunagaku can completely trade space for time. Anyway, the Land of Wind has a large territory and a harsh environment. Invading the Land of Wind from the direction of the Land of Birds would require at least 4 or 5 days of travel. Moreover, because they are within the Land of Wind, Iwagakure would not dare to be too reckless. Minato nodded. The reasoning was indeed sound. This seemed to be the best countermeasure that Tsunagaku could make at the moment. Moreover, even the old one-tailed Jinchuriki had been dispatched, indicating that Tsunagaku had clearly sent out all its elites. It's just. What is it? Seeing Minato still frowning, Jiraiya asked curiously. Minato thought for a moment and still voiced his doubts. Jiraiya-sensei, I always feel like something is not quite right. I always feel like this Kasecage's plan doesn't seem that simple. Quote. Jiraiya was stunned. He recalled the information the village had obtained and suddenly said, thinking of something. There is a piece of news that has not yet been confirmed. It came from Danzo's root. It is said that Kirigakure is seeking an alliance with Tsunagakure. Kirigakure, is it confirmed? Whether or not an alliance has been formed, the village has not yet received definite news, but according to Danzo, he has special intelligence channels in Tsunagakure and has indeed seen Kirigakure ninja appear in Tsunagakure, and they are high-ranking officials from Kirigakure. Yagura Karatachi and Kisame Hoshigaki, trusted aides of the current third Mizukage of Kirigakure. These two names startled Minato because these two were both famous figures in Kirigakure. Moreover, although Minato strongly disliked Danzo's methods, he still had great trust in Root's intelligence capabilities. So, Kirigakure may also join this war? Minato was full of surprise. This Kasecage was indeed becoming more and more unpredictable to him. Jiraiya shook his head instead. The village also considered this possibility, but ultimately rejected it. Why? How should I put it? Jiraiya's expression was somewhat awkward, perhaps to remind his disciple of something, and he explained in detail. Kirigakure's third Mizukage is very special. In a ninja village like Kirigakure, which is dominated by bloodline limit clans, the Mizukage is just an ordinary commoner. The vast majority of power in Tsunagakure is controlled by the 3 major clans. Whether or not Kirigakure can join the battlefield is not something this Mizukage can decide. And these 3 major bloodline limit clans would never agree to help Suna, would they? Why? Do you still remember that woman from Tsunagakure who fought you, named Pakura? Minato nodded. Let's put it this way, that woman's secret technique, Scorch Release, can be said to be the nemesis of the Hazuka clan and the Haku clan, 2 of the 3 major clans in Kirigakure. In recent years, many ninja from the Hazuka clan and the Haku clan have died at the hands of this woman. That's why this woman has such a great reputation and is even qualified to compete for the position of Kasecage. Therefore, Kirigakure will never help Tsunagakure. Even if the third Mizukage agrees, he will not be able to mobilize the village's ninja. I see. Minato fell into thought. But why did he still feel like something was wrong? He thought for a moment and still asked. Is there really no possibility at all? I always feel like this Kasecage isn't that simple? Jiraiya looked at his disciple's tightly furrowed brows and understood that the Kazekage's two actions that had caused Konoha to suffer major defeats had made his disciple somewhat too nervous when facing that Kazekage. However, this was not necessarily a bad thing. He thought for a moment and said, "It's not impossible, unless this Mizukage can come up with some benefits that even those three major clans can't refuse, but if he really had them, this Mizukage wouldn't have ended up in his current awkward situation." Jiraiya's words suddenly made Minato's eyes light up. Benefits. At this moment, countless thoughts flashed through his mind, and countless images flashed through his brain, eventually focusing on his wife, Kushina Uzumaki, and then his pupils shrank. "Sensei, I know, Kurigakure may really be participating in the war." "What?" Minato directly said the answer he had thought of. "Sealing techniques, the sealing techniques of the Uzumaki clan. Don't forget that Kurigakure has the 3 tails and the 6 tails." Jiraiya's pupils also shrank. "Is this your plan?" Land of Wind, on the vast desert. Rasa, Mikawa, and Pakura, dressed in green ninja attire, rushed across the desert. After Rasa's explanation, the two of them finally understood exactly what preparations Rasa had made to secure this victory. Pakura said with some admiration, "No wonder you even called Kurora to participate in the meeting. So you had planned to use that spy named No from the beginning?" Mikawa also praised. "I didn't expect that spy named No to be used in this way. No wonder Lord Kazekage wanted to keep her." "Yes, a spy is a double-edged sword. From the moment her identity was known to us, she has already become a knife for us to use against Konoha." Mikawa nodded. "In that case, at least next, we don't have to worry about Konoha taking advantage of our situation." Pakura thought for a moment and said, "But what if Konoha doesn't believe it? They also have their own intelligence channels in Kurigakure?" Rasa's answer was simple. "That's not important. We don't necessarily need Konoha to believe that Kurigakure will help us. As long as they suspect it, that's enough. Moreover, we didn't lie. That Mizukage did send his confidants to our Sanagakure." Seeing that Rasa could even use this, Mikawa said with admiration. If that Mizukage knew that his little cleverness was actually used by Lord Kazekage, he would probably be overwhelmed with anger. That has nothing to do with us. However, if Konoha can tell this news to Iwagakure and Kumogakure, the situation will be even more favorable to us. Just then, Rasa, sensing something, stopped. A small white snake emerged from the rocks of the desert, speaking in human language. "Lord Rasa, the location of the Iwagakure ninjas has been confirmed. Dash 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 dash." Rasa's guess was correct. After Jiraiya anxiously told the village about Minato's speculation, the higher-ups of Konoha also immediately realized the seriousness of the problem and guessed that Sanagakure and Kurigakure had really formed an alliance. Kurigakure was able to do things like destroying the Uzumaki clan for the Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques. Now, it is very possible to form an alliance with Sanagakure for the sealing techniques. No wonder Sanagakure appeared so calm in the face of the alliance between Kumogakure and Iwagakure. If Kurigakure helps and secretly takes action, then Iwagakure and Kumogakure may really suffer a big loss. This also instantly extinguished the idea of some people in Konoha wanting to fish in troubled waters. As the leader of the route, Danzo, as expected by Rasa. After getting this information, he immediately passed it to Iwagakure and Kumogakure through the route. Compared to letting Konoha suffer heavy casualties, Kumogakure and Iwagakure, who had been attacking the Land of Fire for half a year, Danzo obviously hated the fourth Kazekage even more, who had caused him to lose his Sharingan and arm, and cut off his path to continue researching the Sharingan and the power of the first Hokage. Iwagakure and Kumogakure also quickly received this, unexpectedly obtained, information. The higher-ups of both sides were shocked. Because in their view, the alliance between Sanagakure and Kurigakure was the only explanation for Sanagakure's calmness. Then, after analyzing the current battle situation, Iwagakure and Kumogakure both made changes. Among them, the most drastic reaction was Kumogakure, because their troops might directly face the threat from Kurigakure ninjas. Therefore, Kumogakure directly ordered its ninjas in the Land of Rivers to choose to retreat, to prevent being encircled by Kurigakure ninjas arriving from the sea and Sunagakure ninjas arriving from the Land of Wind. The ninja troops on the sea slowed down. Iwagakure was not so drastic, because the two battle lines of Iwagakure's attack on Sunagakure were both in the small inland countries. Kirigakure, even if it wanted to attack, was beyond its reach. However, just in case, Onoki still asked the Anbu to pass the information here. Dash 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 dash. As time passed, the situation in the entire ninja world became even more strange and unpredictable. After more than a day of long-distance raids, an Iwagakure ninja force of up to 6,000 people, led by 2 Jinchuriki, finally arrived at the border between the Land of Birds and the Land of Wind. They did not rush to continue forward, but let the troops choose to rest, and then wait for news from the vanguard. After a while, 3 ninjas appeared. Reporting to Lord Roshi, Lord Han, we have already investigated, and there are no Sunagakure ninjas ahead. This made the leader, the 4th Tails Jinchuriki Roshi, frown. Although he had received news from the village that Sunagakure had used all its strength, even the old one-tailed Jinchuriki had taken action and went to the Land of Rivers, the problem of no enemies still made their situation somewhat difficult. In theory, now entering the Land of Wind and directly taking advantage of Sunagakure's internal emptiness to attack Sunagakure is the best choice, but the problems caused by the harsh desert environment, including water shortage, getting lost, sandstorms, etc., and the dangers that may be brought about by extending the battle line too long, can easily make them be attacked from both sides. This is probably why Sunagakure dares to be undefended here. At this time, Han, the 5 Tails Jinchuriki wearing armor and a hat, also asked the question in his heart. What do we do now? Senior, do we camp here, or enter the Land of Wind directly? Don't look at the fact that the 5 Tails has 1 more tail than the 4 Tails, but in terms of age, Roshi is 1 round older than Han. He has been a Jinchuriki for longer. Roshi is of the same generation as Onoki, so it is not too much for Han to call him senior. Don't worry. After Roshi finished speaking, he directly asked the vanguard in front of him. Are you sure? Not even one. Hey, one of the 3 people is a perceptive ninja, and said very confidently. Lord Roshi, there are no traces of chakra within my perception range. This is too weird. Roshi looked at the vast desert in front of him, and always felt that it was like a pocket, as if waiting for the Iwagakure ninjas to drill into it. The unease in his heart made him give the order. Go and investigate a few more times. Hey, after the 3 ninjas left, Roshi looked at his junior Han beside him and explained. The 2 of us are now carrying the lives of more than 6,000 village ninjas. No matter how careful we are, it is not too much. Let's confirm more before making a decision. Han nodded seriously when he heard this. At this moment, an Anbu ninja also appeared beside Roshi and handed him a scroll. Lord Roshi, intelligence from the village. Roshi took the scroll and looked at it, his eyes slightly surprised. So that's it, no wonder Lord Kazekage is so bold. He actually formed an alliance with Kurigakure? This can be regarded as resolving the unease in Roshi's heart. As Roshi spoke, he also handed the scroll to Han beside him. After Han finished reading it, he also understood Sunagakure's plan and asked. Senior Roshi, what do we do now? Roshi frowned and thought for a while, then made a decision. It is obviously foolish to drag the battlefield to a position that is favorable to the opponent without entering the Land of Wind. Then what do we do? Advance along the border of the Land of Wind towards the Land of Rivers, and join forces with the troops entering the Land of Rain. At the same time, encircle the Sunagakure troops from the front and rear. But just as he made a decision, there was a rumbling sound from the ground. What's going on? The Iwagakure ninjas quickly found the source of the sound. That. What is that? On the desert in the distance, waves of sand hundreds of meters high, like covering the sky and the sun, attacked towards the Iwagakure ninjas. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. On the border between the land of wind and the land of birds. Under the scorching sun, in a sky without a single cloud. Rosa, Yekura, and Mikawa stood on a sand cloud floating in the sky. Their gazes were all fixed on the densely packed Iwagakure ninjas forming 4 square formations on the Gobi Desert below. Although they were within easy reach, only 2 or 3 kilometers in a straight line, the sensory ninjas of Iwagakure below could not detect their presence. Firstly, their current position was in the sky, and secondly, after cultivating sage art energy. Although Yekura and Mikawa couldn't replace their bodies with sage art energy like Rosa, they could still affect the perception of sensory ninjas. Those are the 2 Jinchuriki of Iwagakure, right? Yekura was younger, so she hadn't fought much with the 2 Jinchuriki of Iwagakure. But Mikawa was different. During the last Shinobi World War, he had already witnessed the power of Roshi. The 4 Tails Jinchuriki, Roshi, is from the same generation as Onoki, only a few years younger. His lava release is very powerful, and his application of the tailed beast's power has reached the point where he can completely transform into a tailed beast. As for Han, the 5 Tails Jinchuriki, he was cultivated by Iwagakure in recent years. Although young, he has also demonstrated the ability to completely transform into a tailed beast in battles with Konoha. In addition, he is also a secret ninjutsu user and can use an ability called Boil Release, granting himself incredible speed and power. After listening to the information provided by Mikawa, Rosa turned his head to look at the 2 of them and said, "Well, have you chosen your opponents?" Upon hearing this, Yekura couldn't wait to say, "Leave the 4 Tails Jinchuriki to me. I really want to see if his lava release is stronger, or my scorch release." Seeing this, Mikawa didn't argue and said, "Then, I'll be responsible for the 5 tails." Rosa then nodded, calculated the time, and said, "I'll only give you half an hour. If you can't resolve it in half an hour, then I'll have to take action myself." "No problem, yeah." Seeing the 2 agree, Rosa turned his head, looked at the densely packed Iwagakure ninjas below, his eyes lowered, and his hands clasped together. "Then, let me greet the ninjas of Iwagakure first." As he spoke, the 3 descended from the sky, and Rosa clasped his hands together. Sage Art Boundary Release Magnet Release Quicksand Waterfall. Boom! Instantly, the entire Gobi Desert began to tremble, the earth began to crack, and cracks appeared. Countless yellow sands turned into overwhelming waves, surging out from within and devouring the Iwagakure ninjas in the distance. At this moment, the entire Gobi Desert turned into a sea of sand. The sudden attack surprised all the Iwagakure ninjas. The sand waves, like a tsunami, covering the sky and the sun, made many young Iwagakure ninjas show fear. Fortunately, the Iwagakure ninjas were prepared. Although they didn't know where this attack came from, countless Iwagakure Jonin immediately jumped to the front of the entire team, facing the sand waves that seemed to devour them all, each forming hand seals. Earth Release Myriad Miles Earth Flow Wall. Instantly, tall earth walls, like the Great Wall of China, stood in front of all the Iwagakure ninjas. The sand waves collided with the earth walls, making a sound that made the earth rumble. Although the sand waves were blocked, the Iwagakure ninjas became nervous instead. "What's going on? Didn't we not discover the Sand Village ninjas? What are the vanguard troops doing?" Fortunately, the Iwagakure troops reacted quickly, otherwise, if such a large-scale attack fell on the Iwagakure ninja troops, I'm afraid there would be heavy casualties at once. At this moment, the sensory ninjas of Iwagakure suddenly sensed something and pointed to the top of the earth wall with horrified expressions. There are people there. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. All the Iwagakure ninjas instantly took out kunai and looked in the direction pointed by the sensory ninjas with vigilance. Under the dazzling sunlight, at the position where the 100-meter-high earth wall collided with the sand waves, 3 dark figures slowly appeared in front of everyone. After the Iwagakure ninjas saw the faces of these 3 ninjas clearly, horrified expressions appeared on their faces. That's the Kazekage of Sanagakure, Yekura of Scorch Release, Mikawa of magnet release. How is that possible? Didn't the information say that they went to the land of rivers? So that's it, their real target is actually us? This was the thought of all the Iwagakure ninjas, and Roshi, the leader of this troop, naturally thought so too. Therefore, he watched his surroundings even more nervously, worried that the troops would be surrounded by the enemy. But at this moment, the sensory ninja on the side clasped his hands together again, trying hard to sense the surroundings, and said with a puzzled expression. How is that possible? What's wrong? Roshi shouted angrily. As sensory ninjas, not discovering the enemy was already their dereliction of duty. The sensory ninja said with an incomprehensible expression. Lord Roshi, I can't feel it at all. Within a 10-kilometer radius, I still haven't sensed the existence of any ninjas. Roshi's first reaction was of course disbelief. But the Sanagakure ninjas on the tall earth wall were no longer giving them time. The Scorch Release ninja named Yakura and the Magnet Release ninja named Mikawa had already descended from the sky, rushing towards the Iwagakure ninjas. Their momentum had a kind of feeling of 2 against 6,000. In midair, Yakura looked at this group of Iwagakure ninjas who didn't seem to have reacted yet. Her expression was cold, but her movements were not slow at all. Scorch Release Firefly. Instantly, countless small fireballs like fireflies appeared behind her, like scattered dandelions, drifting towards the Iwagakure ninjas below. This speed and the tiny fireballs made the Iwagakure ninjas a little strange, because it didn't seem to have much destructive power. However, they still subconsciously took out kunai and threw them towards these fireballs in the sky. Because these fireballs were too slow, they were easily hit by kunai. It's just that the scene of the fireballs being scattered that they expected did not appear. Instead, after being hit by the kunai, they split into 2 and continued to fall towards the Iwagakure ninjas. Seeing this, the corners of Yakura's mouth also raised a smile. And Roshi, as the Four Tails Jinchuriki, felt the terrifying heat contained in these seemingly harmless fireballs the moment they approached. Be careful, but his reminder was too late. Those small fireballs that flew fast had already fallen into the densely packed Iwagakure formation. Any ninja who was touched immediately let out a scream, his whole body exuding water vapor like boiling water, and then turned into a black mummy as if it had been roasted. This scene frightened all the Iwagakure ninjas, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. When they raised their heads, countless fireballs in the sky began to fall. The Iwagakure ninja team was instantly in chaos, making screams. Seeing Yakura's attack, Mikawa, who had already landed on the ground, also formed hand seals. Magnet Release Iron Sand Rain. As a mature and steady man, Mikawa's first attack wasn't like Bakura's, directly using his newly acquired power. He still used the most basic magnet release, but that doesn't mean his power was weak. You have to know that magnet release, Iron Sand Gathering, was the bloodline limit that allowed the third Kazekage to be hailed as the strongest Kazekage. As Mikawa's chakras surged, countless iron sand particles flew out from the ground beneath his feet. Around his body, they condensed into a wall of black iron sand. Countless black kunai flew from the wall, transforming into a rain of arrows that attacked the Iwagakure ninja. Under the joint attack of Bakura and Mikawa, at the first contact, the Iwagakure ninja squad fell into complete disarray. The Jonin and Chunin could naturally use Earth Release ninjutsu to protect themselves and their companions, but there were ultimately places they couldn't cover, especially the Genin, who instantly became cannon fodder on the battlefield. Instantly, cries of anguish echoed across the land. Faced with such a wide range, long-distance, destructive ninjutsu, the Iwagakure ninja naturally couldn't sit still and wait for death. Roshi, as the commander of this unit, immediately gave the order. Go and take care of those 2 jutsu users? Yes. Immediately, dozens of Iwagakure Jonin stood up and charged towards Bakura and Mikawa in the distance. These Jonin had all heard of the names of Scorch Release Bakura and Magnet Release Mikawa. Of course, they didn't think that they could stop the opponent with their own strength alone, so they chose to attack together. But just then, as they were about to approach the 2, suddenly, everyone felt like something had appeared overhead, and a large shadow appeared under their feet. As Jonin, their reaction speed was naturally extremely fast. They immediately jumped to the surroundings. And at the moment they jumped away, a behemoth descended from the sky, slamming heavily on the ground, emitting a violent roar. Then, they saw clearly what this was. They were beings that looked like small mountains, with the appearance of tanuki and the physique of humans, wearing armor, holding a shield in one hand and a sword in the other, like samurai. What are these monsters? And just as they were shocked, Pakura and Mikawa's figures passed over their heads, directly attacking the Iwagakure ninja behind them. They wanted to pursue, but these tanuki monsters, with scarlet light flashing in their eyes, blocked their path, and the great swords in their hands fell with a bang. Is this puppetry? At the forefront of the Iwagakure ninja, looking at these suddenly appearing giant monsters, Roshi's face was unsightly. Especially these monsters, who could actually stop the village's Jonin. However, he couldn't care about that, because the two from Sanagakure had already attacked in the direction of Iwagakure. However, there were only 2 people, wasn't that too few? And from the time the other party attacked until now, apart from that Kazekage who hadn't moved yet, they still hadn't seen any Sanagakure ninja. Just then, he suddenly noticed that Pakura and Mikawa's attack direction seemed to be towards him. Suddenly, Roshi suddenly understood, and his gaze turned to Rasa, who was motionless in the distance. So that's it? This is Sanagakure's real plan, huh? Roshi's words made everyone around him stunned. Senior Roshi, what do you mean? Roshi said in a low voice. This Kazekage of Sanagakure wants to end this war by capturing his 2 Jinchuriki and threatening the village. Everyone was shocked. Are you kidding me? There are only 3 of them, but we have 6,000 people here. Moreover, Lord Roshi and Lord Han, you are Jinchuriki. Even being arrogant has to have its limits. Everyone in Iwagakure was instantly filled with indignation. As a young man, Han naturally couldn't hold back his anger, but Roshi frowned. As a Jinchuriki, he was of course confident in his own strength. But the other party was the Kazekage of Sanagakure, and he wasn't a fool. Since he dared to make such a decision, the other party must have some means. Thinking of this, looking at Pakura and Mikawa who were already approaching in the distance, Roshi made a decision and stood up directly and said, Han, prepare yourself, let's attack. Rather than waiting passively, it's better to take the initiative and see what means the other party has. Moreover, with the strength of these 2, sending the companions in the village up there is just sending them to their deaths. Han also understood Roshi's plan, nodded, and stood up as well. At this moment, both of their bodies began to change rapidly. Only to see that with the surge of chakra, Roshi's whole body was covered in scorching magma, emitting a terrifying heat, and white steam began to gush out from the gaps in Han's armor, making a sharp cry. Be careful, let's go. Yes. Boom. Instantly, the 2 of them also rose from the ground and charged towards the enemy at an incredible speed. Are they coming? Pakura and Mikawa, who were rushing forward, immediately noticed the 2 Jinchuriki who were attacking. This surprised the 2 of them a little. They thought that they would have to kill a few Iwagakure ninja to test the waters. However, this was also a good thing. Looking at Roshi in lava release chakra mode, Pakura directly became excited, activated scorch release chakra mode, transformed into a flame, and rushed out past Mikawa. However, she also knew that she had to keep some trump cards up her sleeve. At this time, she activated the ordinary scorch release chakra mode. Thus, under everyone's incredible gazes, on the Gobi Desert, the Flame Man and the Magma Man, emitting terrifying heat, collided together. Boom! The terrifying heat directly created a vacuum zone around the 2 of them, and the scorching steam blew away everything around them. Roshi was a little surprised at this moment. Of course, he knew of the existence of scorch release Pakura of Sanagakure, but he didn't expect that the other party's scorch release could actually be comparable to his lava release. You have to know that his lava release was cultivated with the help of the tailed beast's chakra. Pakura felt the temperature from the other party's lava release and raised the corner of her mouth and said, 4 tails Jinchuriki, it seems that your lava release isn't that great either? On the other side, Mikawa looked at the 5 tails Jinchuriki, whose whole body was spewing steam, like a train, rushing towards him at an extremely fast speed, and he also formed hand seals with both hands. Magnet release. Iron sand cylinder. The countless iron sand above his head quickly condensed into a huge cylinder and flew towards the attacking Five Tails Jinchuriki. At the very moment when the great generals of the Sand Village and the Rock Village were engaged in battle. Far away from the battlefield, atop the ruins of a village. As the earth began to distort, a figure wearing a hooded windbreaker, a white mask on his face, and revealing a single scarlet Sharingan slowly rose. He exuded an aura like that of a grim reaper, his gaze slowly sweeping across the battlefield. First, he looked at the Sand Village and Rock Village ninjas fighting on the battlefield, his eyes showing some disdain, and then, as the three tomo in his Sharingan rotated, he noticed the figure on the tall earthen wall in the distance, and said in an aged, deep voice. Interesting, is that the current Kazekage of the Sand Village? From the same body, another comical voice emerged. Yes, Lord Madara, that is the fourth Kazekage of the Sand Village. Rasa. Uchiha Madara seems somewhat interested as he said. As expected, it's a very peculiar power, somewhat like Hashirama's Sage Jutsu. It actually prevents my senses from detecting it. Lord Madara, should we eliminate him then, in case he disrupts your plan? No hurry, let me witness this power first, after all. An opportunity to come out once is not easy. Let me see what progress these brats in the current ninja world have made. As Uchiha Madara's words fell, on the distant battlefield, Pakura from the Sand Village, Mikawa, and the Jinchuriki Roshi and Han from the Rock Village had also engaged in combat. As time passed, on the battlefield of Blaze release Pakura and Lava release Roshi. The two, relying on the advantages of their own bloodline and secret techniques, chose the most favorable battle method for them, which was to use the purest taijutsu to clash head-on, but after several tentative exchanges, both of them discovered that, as two similar abilities, the destructive power of their techniques was somewhat ineffective against the other. Although Pakura was a woman, she was not at all weaker than Roshi in terms of taijutsu. And on the other battlefield, the magnetic release Iron Sand's ability to possess both offense and defense without equal also restrained the speed and power brought by Boil release. No matter how strong the power of the Five Tails Jinchuriki was, it was still somewhat insufficient in the face of the absolute defense constructed by the Iron Sand, and no matter how fast his speed was, it couldn't be faster than the Iron Sand, not to mention that Mikawa also had an advantage that the Five Tails Jinchuriki didn't have, which was that he could use the Iron Sand to form Iron Sand wings and fly in the air, completely occupying the advantage of air supremacy, leaving the Five Tails Jinchuriki with no choice but to be passively beaten. In the direction of the Rock Village ninjas, looking at the astonishing battle before them, the Chunin and Genin of the Rock Village were all shocked. No matter which village it was, bloodline limits and secret techniques were very rare existences. Their battle was something that many ordinary ninjas would hardly ever see in their lifetime, but now, they were being displayed one by one in front of the Rock Village ninjas. The powerful destructive force and visual effects made these Rock Village ninjas exclaim at the power of the two Jinchuriki-sama, and also felt for the first time that the Sand Village actually had such powerful ninjas. As for the Jonin, their faces were solemn. As expected of the Sand Village's famous Blaze Release and Magnetic Release ninjas, they can actually fight back and forth with the two Jinchuriki-sama. However, they were still full of confidence in the Jinchuriki in their village, because the two adults had not yet shown the power of the tailed beast, but they also had some worries, because the true commander of the Sand Village, that Kazekage-sama, had not yet made a move. Quickly report the information here to Kazekage-sama. Yes. After giving the order, the Rock Village ninjas continued to watch the battlefield nervously. Seeing that their bloodline limits and secret techniques were not very useful against the other party, in order to save chakra, the two tacitly released the Lava Release and Blaze Release chakra mode. Lava Release Scorching River Rock Technique. As Roshi formed hand seals, countless huge lava fireballs flew towards Pakura. The lava fireballs not only had a terrifying temperature, but the burning giant rocks also carried a terrifying impact force. Even if Pakura wasn't afraid of the temperature, she wouldn't dare to let herself be hit by these rocks. As her figure moved nimbly between the lava fireballs, dodging at the same time, she also formed hand seals. Blaze Release Rabbit Bomb. Countless flames quickly appeared around her, and after falling to the ground, they turned into flame rabbits, attacking Roshi in the distance. Roshi spewed fireballs, wanting to stop these flame rabbits, but found that these flame rabbits were clearly so numerous, but each one was unusually nimble, as if they had their own intelligence. He could only dodge by shifting his body. On the other side, Han, as the Five Tails Jinchuriki, was very unhappy. As a user of boil release, he could raise his chakra to the boiling point to unleash incredible brute force. To what extent was this brute force powerful? Facing an iron sand cylinder as heavy as a dozen tons, like a small mountain, he could knock it away with one punch. However, this was of no use at all. The other party only needed to disperse the iron sand cylinder, which had been condensed into one piece, back into grains of iron sand to dissipate the power on it, and the troublesome thing was that the other party could actually fly. One had to know that the ability to fly in this rock village could only be done by Tsuchikage-sama's lightweight rock technique. The other party used this ability to fly in the sky, manipulating the iron sand, treating him as if he were a wooden stake, changing the iron sand into various shapes to attack. As a young man, Han also had a temper. After being passively beaten like this for a few minutes, he couldn't help but take the lead. In the sky, Mikawa, who was flying in the air with the iron sand wains, immediately noticed the enemy's movements. He saw a dark red chakra appearing all over Han's body, directly entering the state of half-tailed beast transformation. While his body was covered in a dark red-tailed beast cloak, 5 dark red tails also appeared behind him, and the terrifying aura he emitted instantly swept across the entire battlefield. Han's change immediately attracted everyone's attention. Even the ninjas of the rock village were seeing the half-tailed beast transformation of the Jinchuriki in their village for the first time. This vast chakra made them all feel terrified. Pakura, who was fighting Roshi, also sensed it at the first moment. Is this the power of the tailed beast? What an evil and vast chakra? She was also seeing the half-tailed beast transformation state of the Jinchuriki for the first time. If her power hadn't grown several levels and she hadn't mastered Sage Art energy, she really wouldn't have had any confidence in fighting. Compared to the shock of others, Mikawa, as his opponent, was relatively calm. Because he had already seen this form during the previous Great Ninja War. That was the 8 Tails Jinchuriki who had already died in the Cloud Village. But the next scene made him shudder in horror. A fist-sized, deep purple chakra ball condensed in front of the half-tailed beast transformed 5 Tails Jinchuriki, and then launched. Tailed Beast Ball. Boom. The entire battlefield of Iwagakure ninjas was dumbfounded. As the deep purple-tailed beast bomb shot towards Mikawa, who was flying in the sky, the smoke and flames from the violent explosion covered the firmament, and the huge impact directly stirred up the surrounding flying sand and rocks, flying in all directions. The Iwagakure ninjas all shielded themselves with their hands. When the explosion passed and the smoke dissipated, the Iwagakure ninjas roared with cold sweat. Is this the power of the tailed beast? So powerful? That Sanagakure ninja should be dead. No, he's still alive. As soon as the words fell, the last bit of smoke in the sky dissipated, and Mikawa's figure also appeared in everyone's field of vision. Only a 1-meter thick iron wall was seen in front of him, and the scalding molten iron slowly dripped down. How is that possible? Seeing this scene, it was not only the 2 Jinchuriki from Iwagakure who were surprised, but also Uchiha Madara in the distance. They knew the power of the tailed beast bomb. Although the power of the tailed beast bomb was much smaller in the half-tailed beast state, it was still no problem to destroy a mountain. The reason why Jinchuriki are regarded as a symbol of a country's military power is because of such destructive power. But now, such a powerful tailed beast bomb was actually blocked by such a layer of iron sand. Of course, Madara could also easily defend against the tailed beast bomb. His former friend, Hashirama, could also do it. But how did this Sanagakure ninja do it? Madara, who was originally not interested in this children's fight, immediately became interested. Seeing that his tailed beast bomb was actually defended against by the other party. The 5 Tails Jinchuriki, who was already half-tailed beast, showed a trace of incomprehension on his face, but this did not prevent him from continuing to attack. only to see the deep purple chakra gathering again at the mouth of the Five Tails Jinchuriki. Faced with such a killing move, Mikawa calmly formed hand seals. However, this time, what he mobilized was not only chakra, but also the senjutsu energy stored in his body. Sage Art. Magnet Release. Iron Sand Shield. In an instant, dense iron sand, transformed from chakra and senjutsu energy, appeared around Mikawa's body, merging with the original iron sand to form an iron sand wall more than 10 meters thick. At this time, the Five Tails Jinchuriki's tailed beast bomb was also launched. This time, everyone on the battlefield finally saw clearly how the iron sand defended against the tailed beast bomb. Only to see that at the moment when the tailed beast bomb touched the iron sand shield, the fist-sized tailed beast bomb immediately merged into the iron sand shield as if piercing through a piece of paper. From this point of view, this iron sand shield seemed to be unable to defend against this extremely destructive tailed beast bomb at all. But at this moment, the square iron sand shield began to change rapidly, from a square to a sphere, wrapping the entire tailed beast bomb in it. Then, everyone saw the surface of the iron sand sphere begin to wriggle irregularly, as if something was constantly exploding inside, until it finally returned to complete calm, and scorching hot molten iron slowly flowed out of it. The Iwagakure ninjas, including the two Jinchuriki, were all stunned. They didn't expect that the Jinchuriki's strongest killing move, the tailed beast bomb, would be solved so easily. It's just that they still didn't understand what was going on. Only Uchiha Madara in the distance observed everything through his Sharingan at this moment. Only to see that at the moment when the tailed beast bomb came into contact with the iron sand shield, the chakra was absorbed by this peculiar iron sand. At the same time, the absorbed chakra was transformed into iron sand, making up for the iron sand that was melted by the tailed beast bomb, and inversely enhancing the defensive power of the iron sand shield. This familiar scene reminded Uchiha Madara of his friend Hashirama Senju's wood release. The reason why Hashirama's wood release was so difficult to deal with was because it could absorb the enemy's chakra, turning the enemy's power into the source of power for wood release itself, using the enemy's strength against them. It could be said to be very rogue. Even a chakra monster like the Nine Tails would be sucked dry in an instant. Of course, Madara could also see that the ability of this iron sand to absorb chakra was not as perverted as Hashirama's wood release. It probably only absorbed 1/3 of the tailed beast bomb's chakra. However, that was enough. The chakra was weakened by 1/3, and the circular, evenly stressed structure perfectly distributed the impact of the explosion. Interesting, it seems that a good kid has appeared in Sunagaku. Madara did not hesitate to praise. However, the faces of the Iwagakure ninjas turned ugly. The Sunagakure ninja could actually easily resist the tailed beast bomb of the Jinchuriki-sama in the half-tailed beast state. Han, the Five Tails Jinchuriki in the half-tailed beast state, also looked a little unsightly at this time. 2 consecutive tailed beast bombs were also a bit of a burden for the Five Tails Jinchuriki in the half-tailed beast state. This was not because the tailed beast's chakra was insufficient, but because he could only use so much of the tailed beast's chakra in this state. If he continued, the tailed beast chakra in his body would get out of control and enter a runaway state. The reason why he could use the power of the Five Tails now was not because he had reached a true reconciliation with the tailed beast, but only because he could borrow some of the other party's power. And if he wanted to borrow more of the tailed beast's chakra, he could only enter the complete state. But now, was he going to enter such a state? The other party's commander, the Kazekage, had not yet made a move. Lao Zi, who was on the side, also felt the current situation and looked at Yekora in front of him with an unkind expression and said, "I see, is this the confidence of you Sunagaku? You actually dare to appear in front of us with just 3 people." Yekora frowned, then the corners of her mouth raised, and the fireballs floated around her body again as she smiled. "What's wrong, Iwagakure's 4 Tails Jinchuriki, are you ready to surrender?" Don't look at how confident Yekora is, but she herself is a bit of a headache, because she found that although she now has good defensive capabilities through mastering senjutsu energy and allowing her scorch release to absorb chakra, Her defense is a bit awkward in the face of techniques with such terrifying destructive power as the tailed beast bomb. She couldn't possibly use her body to directly resist the tailed beast bomb, right? What to do? It was obviously impossible to remaster a defensive secret technique. Suddenly, Yekura thought of something. The tailed beast bomb just now seemed a little familiar. No, this was the first time she had seen a technique like the tailed beast bomb. But why did she feel familiar? Suddenly, Yekura thought that she had indeed seen a ninjutsu that was very similar to the tailed beast bomb, and that was the ninjutsu used by the Konoha ninja Minato Namikaze, the Rasengan. And if she remembered correctly, Rasa could also use this ninjutsu. He also used this ninjutsu to save her once. If she could also learn this ninjutsu, then she could use the tailed beast bomb against the tailed beast bomb, using offense as defense. Thinking of this, Yekura couldn't help but show a trace of a smile on her face. As for whether Rasa would teach her, she wouldn't worry at all. It's just that Yekura didn't expect that her evil smile fell into the eyes of the Iwagakure ninja Lao Zi on the opposite side, which made Lao Zi angry. Sanagakure ninja, don't underestimate the Jinchuriki. Let me tell you a truth. Only the tailed beast can fight against the tailed beast. Boom. Dark red chakra began to spread rapidly around Lao Zi's body. However, this time Lao Zi did not choose to half-tailed beast, but directly transformed into a huge red ape, with 4 huge tails flying, and let out an angry roar at the sky. Ah, this truly brings back memories. On the side of the battlefield, the Sharingan eye revealed by Uchiha Madara held a hint of nostalgia. More than 40 years ago, after the establishment of Konoha village, in order to maintain peace between the 5 great nations, his friend Hashirama proposed the idea of distributing the tailed beasts to balance the military strength of the 5 great nations. Among them, except for the one tail, which was already in the hands of Sanagakure, the other tailed beasts were captured by the 2 of them. The 4 tails was taken down by him. And now, on the battlefield, looking at the giant monster that suddenly appeared in front of them, resembling a mountain. Even though the Iwagakure ninjas knew that this was their village's tailed beast, they still felt fear at the first sight of it, and their bodies began to tremble. Fortunately, at this moment, a familiar voice came from the mouth of the giant ape monster. All Iwagakure ninjas, retreat 3 miles. Hearing the order, under the leadership of the Iwagakure Jonin, all the Iwagakure ninjas immediately began to retreat. Yekura did not stop them, nor was there any need to stop them. The Jonin who were entangled with the Tanuki monsters saw that Roshi had directly transformed into the complete tailed beast form, and they also knew that the current battle was not something they could participate in, so they all broke away from the monsters and retreated. As for Han, the 5 tails Jinchuriki, he instead withdrew from the tailed beast mode. He needed to conserve chakra in case of an emergency. After all, the Kazekage of Sanagakure had not yet made a move. And as the Iwagakure ninjas retreated to a safe zone, Roshi, who had transformed into the 4 tails son Goku, looked at the tiny Yekura in front of him and roared. Sanagakure ninjas, let me show you the power of the tailed beast. That's quite an exaggerated size. Yekura was really seeing the complete tailed beast form for the first time. It had to be said that the pressure was indeed enormous. However, it was precisely because of this that it was interesting. Anyway, she had Rasa behind her. Thinking of this, she directly formed hand seals with both hands. Summoning technique. Along with a burst of white smoke, Yekura's figure rose from the ground, and at her feet, a summoning beast appeared, its whole body yellow, like a combination of a lion and an elephant. Uchiha Madara in the distance was stunned when he saw this summoning beast appear. If I remember correctly, isn't that the summoning beast of the Shimura clan? The dream taper? How did it end up in the hands of Sanagakure? White Zetsu's voice sounded, saying, Madara-sama, I reported to you that last time Danzo tried to attack this Kazekage, he not only lost his arm and Sharingan, but even his summoning beast was taken away. Hearing this, Madara immediately snorted with disdain. Konoha is really becoming more and more unsightly. Unfortunately, Madara spoke too soon, because the next scene left him even more dumbfounded. The dream taper, which had been summoned, wanted to roar a few times, expressing its joy at being summoned by its new master, but it soon saw the Four Tails Son Goku in front of it, and its throat seemed to be suddenly blocked, staring blankly at its new master, as if asking, "Is this our enemy?" Yakura certainly knew that sending the Dream Taper to deal with the complete Four Tails was obviously sending it to its death. However, this embarrassing appearance still made her say somewhat awkwardly, "You just need to distract him, leave the tailed beast to me." As soon as she finished speaking, a confident smile appeared on Yakura's face, and she put her hands together, forming the rooster seal. 8 gates release open: opening gate, healing gate, life gate, pain gate, limit gate. Yakura directly opened 5 gates in a row. Boom. Instantly, chakra erupted from Yakura's body like a torrent, and the powerful aura swept across the entire battlefield, making everyone feel the chakra erupting from Yakura's seemingly weak body, which was no weaker than that of a tailed beast. How is this possible? The faces of the Iwagakure ninjas were now filled with horror. The strength of the Sanagakure ninjas had exceeded everyone's expectations. Uchiha Madara's tone became colder. That little brat named Danzo really gave the enemy a lot of gifts. Needless to say, the 8 gates release technique, as Konoha's forbidden technique, now falling into the hands of Sunagakure, must be related to Danzo. In the center of the battlefield, Yakura, with visible surging chakra flowing around her, standing on top of the Dream Taper's head, still did not stop her hand movements. Wanting to deal with the tailed beast in her current state was still a bit short. However, she still had her real trump card that she hadn't released. This move was what she had cultivated during this period of time, based on the Scorch released chakra mode, gathering all the power she had obtained from Rasa over the past year or so. Sage Art Scorch released chakra Phoenix mode. Instantly, behind Yakura, like the tail feathers of a peacock, huge wings burning with flames danced in the wind, and the burning flames directly wrapped Yakura's entire body, turning her into a giant burning phoenix, extending her burning claws and grabbing towards the 4 tails in front of her. This beautiful and sacred scene directly stunned everyone on the battlefield. That's really a gorgeous move. It had to be said that Yakura was indeed a genius in the development of techniques. This technique, in addition to integrating the 8 gates release, Sage Art Energy, and Scorch release, also incorporated the Peacock Mystical method from the Star Ninja Village. It should be known that the Peacock Mystical method was the power that Rasa had planned for the second time since coming to this world, and he himself had almost forgotten about it now. Boom! As the Jinchuriki of the 4 tails, Roshi was also somewhat frightened when he saw the giant flaming phoenix attacking, but he was still very confident in the power of his tailed beast. He saw the 4 tails slam his hands against the ground. Lava release Mount Wake Fruit Mountain. Instantly, the ground under the 4 tails' feet turned into lava, like a volcanic eruption, with lava as high as tens of meters gushing out, blocking the attacking phoenix. But this phoenix seemed to not see it at all, directly passing through the gushing lava, extending its burning claws and grabbing directly towards the 4 tails. Although he had expected that his lava release might not be effective against the opponent, seeing that he was regarded as nothing still gave Roshi a headache, but it didn't matter. He was very confident in the defensive power of the tailed beast's body. Thinking of this, he directly grabbed towards the attacking phoenix claws. It was just that a scene he didn't expect appeared. At the moment when his hands grabbed the burning phoenix, a burning pain struck. He looked down and found that burn marks had actually appeared on the 4 tails' hands. How is that possible? Roshi couldn't figure it out at all. At this moment, a voice sounded in his mind. "Idiot, don't use my body to resist it head-on. Her flames are not right. There is a special energy inside that can cause damage to me." What? Although Roshi was surprised that the 4 tails actually took the initiative to talk to him, he still deeply believed in the 4 tails' words and immediately endured the burning pain, throwing the opponent away. And the phoenix controlled by Yakura only turned a circle in the air before immediately spreading its wings. Countless fireballs appeared under her burning wings, attacking the 4 tails. Seeing this, Roshi, feeling the pain in his hands, could only quickly dodge. Interesting, it can actually cause damage to the bodies of the tailed beasts. Is this the power of that special force from the hidden sand village? Not far from the battlefield, Madara Uchiha's tone became somewhat serious. As someone who has now obtained the power of all creation, he understands what the tailed beasts are. They are lifeforms created by the Sage of Six Paths using yin-yang release, so theoretically, the only powers that can harm or control them are yin-yang release and pure taijutsu. But now, this small hidden sand village has actually demonstrated the power to harm the tailed beasts. This means that the yin-yang release he possesses may not be so invincible after all. While keeping an eye on the battlefield, he asked, "What exactly is this power? Have you collected any information about it?" The white Zetsu's voice was somewhat flustered. Madara-sama, because of your orders, we haven't risked going to that mysterious oasis in the hidden sand village to investigate. After all, they have an Uzumaki clan survivor who can sense our power. As for those guys from the Hidden Stone Village, although we lured them over, unfortunately, those Hidden Stone Village ninja were too useless. They didn't find anything before being sealed. Because we were worried about the risk of exposure, we didn't dare to retrieve the spores. Madara didn't say anything, because he understood that although the white Zetsu's ability to gather information was excellent, they were ultimately lacking in intelligence. It seems that for the sake of the smooth progress of his future plans, he must create another substitute for his will that can perfectly complete the tasks he assigns. Let's call it Black Zetsu? As expected of a battle between the strongest powers on both sides, to some extent. The battle between Yekura's Phoenix mode and Roshi's complete tailed beast mode can be said to be earth-shattering. Even after retreating 3 miles, the impact and scorching heat from the battle between the two still forced the Hidden Stone Village ninja to retreat another 5 miles. This was already a battle that these ninja could not interfere with. In a battle of this destructive power, even Jonin could only flee in panic. The Hidden Stone Village ninja were not surprised that the tailed beasts possessed such great power. But why does this Hidden Sand Village ninja also possess such great power? What worried these Hidden Stone Village ninja even more was that the Kazekage in the distance still hadn't made any moves. This Hidden Sand Village female ninja is already so strong, so how powerful would this Kazekage be? Thinking of this, the Hidden Stone Village ninja suddenly understood why these 3 Hidden Sand Village ninja dared to face the 6,000 Hidden Stone Village ninja alone, and even dared to attack the 2 Jinchuriki-sama. Because they really have that kind of power. In the center of the battlefield, Roshi was now experiencing Han's pain. Facing Yekura, who possessed the ability to fly, Roshi could still only passively take a beating. Moreover, because of his huge size, he had become a walking wooden stake. Slippery and troublesome to death. At this point, Roshi couldn't take it anymore. He raised his head directly, and chakra quickly gathered in his mouth. As a complete tailed beast, at this moment, Roshi's tailed beast ball was many times larger than Han's just now, directly evolving from the size of a fist to the size of half a basketball court. Seeing this scene, Yekura, who had transformed into a phoenix in the air, felt the huge chakra in the tailed beast ball and broke out in a cold sweat. Although she was somewhat unwilling, she also knew that she had no way to resist this tailed beast ball in its complete state with her current means. Fortunately, at this time, Rasa's voice rang out behind her. "Half an hour is up, Yekura, Mikawa. You can retreat now. Leave the rest to me." Rasa's movements, of course, could not escape the notice of the Hidden Stone Village ninja and Madara Uchiha, who had been paying attention to him. "Oh, is he finally going to make a move? Let me see what kind of power this kid possesses." Yekura and Mikawa didn't hesitate at all and released their power, returning to their ordinary appearances and arriving on the sand gold cloud behind Rasa, who had already flown over. Seeing this scene, the 4 tails Jinchuriki Roshi, who was preparing the tailed beast ball, also felt a tightness in his heart, but his confidence in the power of the tailed beast still made him launch the prepared huge tailed beast ball towards Rasa's direction without hesitation. Facing the incoming huge dark purple tailed beast ball, Rasa simply put his hands together calmly. Sage Art Boundary Release Desert Renegade. Just as the tailed beast ball was about to fly in front of the 3 of them, 2 huge sand arms flew out from underground, grabbing the tailed beast ball in midair. What? This time, not only the Hidden Stone Village ninja were stunned, but Roshi, the owner of the tailed beast ball, was also stunned. A tailed beast ball that was enough to destroy a village was actually caught so easily. Madara Uchiha in the distance was also somewhat surprised. He could certainly do it too. Susanoo's defensive power allowed him to easily withstand the tailed beast ball. His friend Hashirama could also do it, even grabbing the tailed beast ball in his hand and playing with it like a ball. But this hidden sand village ninja. While everyone was surprised, the tailed beast ball, which was grabbed by the two huge sand hands, began to struggle violently, but only for a while. The tailed beast ball began to become smaller and smaller until it finally turned into a wisp of blue smoke and disappeared. The hidden stone village ninja looked at this scene, startled, and their bodies subconsciously retreated in fear. Don't joke around, that kind of terrifying move was actually easily. Is that the Kazekage of the hidden sand village? He's not even on the same level as the hidden sand village ninja from just now. Not long ago, the hidden sand village ninja Mikawa had also resisted the tailed beast ball, but it was definitely not this easy. Gulp. The hidden stone village ninja couldn't help but swallow their non-existent saliva. Behind Rasa, there was also a hint of imperceptible surprise in Yekura and Mikawa's eyes. Although the two had long known that Rasa, who had mastered sage art energy, was terrifyingly powerful, they had no concept of how powerful he was. But at this moment, they had clearly realized it. Rasa was no longer on the same level as them. Rasa ignored the two. After destroying the tailed beast ball, Rasa controlled the sand gold cloud to slowly float in front of the still surprised Four Tails Son Goku. Seeing this, the Five Tails Jinchuriki Han also felt a tightness in his heart and transformed into his complete body. A huge monster, white like a dolphin and a horse merged, appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, two-tailed beasts like mountains stood in front of all the hidden stone village ninja. And in front of them were the enemies from the hidden sand village: Kazekage Rasa, Scorch Release Yekura, Magnet Release Mikawa. Rasa looked at the two-tailed beasts who were on guard and slowly opened his mouth. From my personal interest, I have no interest in killing, but standing in the position of Kazekage and the village, I must resolve the hidden stone village here. Therefore, Four Tails Jinchuriki and Five Tails Jinchuriki, as long as you choose to surrender now, I can spare everyone in the hidden stone village. Don't joke around. As Rasa's voice fell, Roshi's voice came from the Four Tails body. The hidden stone village only has defeated ninja, not surrendering ninja. Although he was not surprised by this result, Rasa still sighed. Is that so? Then I can only apologize. At this moment, Yekura and Mikawa, who were standing behind Rasa, were both shocked, because they felt the vast sage art energy like a mountain emanating from Rasa's body. Sage art boundary release magnet release sand tree world advent. Boom. What's that sound? Accompanied by Roshi's technique being unleashed, the earth trembled. Everyone could feel the ground shaking beneath their feet. They didn't understand what kind of move this was. Suddenly, the ground rapidly cracked, with spiderweb-like fissures spreading directly under the feet of the Iwagakure ninjas. This made them unsteady, and a sense of unease arose in their hearts. Some Iwagakure ninjas already had the intention to retreat. Be careful. Roshi, transformed into the four-tailed Monkey King, Son Goku, immediately shouted at the ninjas behind him, while cautiously watching his surroundings. Facing this mysterious Kazekage, Roshi didn't dare to relax in the slightest. He really wanted to sense what was happening beneath his feet, but unfortunately, he couldn't sense anything. Bang, bang, bang. Just then, accompanied by violent explosions, countless dense grains of sand erupted from these cracks. The entire battlefield was filled with yellow sand. The Iwagakure ninjas looked at the gray and yellow world around them, startled. They quickly took out kunai and cautiously guarded their surroundings. However, these sands, besides obscuring their vision, allowing them to see only about 3 or 4 meters around them, and being a bit choking, didn't seem to have anything special about them. Roshi, at the forefront of the battlefield, also felt very strange. He looked left and right, and his huge head could only see the white Wang beside him. He couldn't see the ninjas behind him anymore. Fortunately, his sensory abilities were still usable, and he didn't detect anything unusual. But that was the strangest thing. He didn't believe that this mysterious Kazecage's move would be so light and breezy. Yekura and Mikawa behind Rosha had the same doubts as Roshi. They both looked at Rosha with questioning eyes. Rosha, however, looked calm and composed. "Don't worry," I said, "I'm not interested in killing, so I used a relatively gentle move." Gentle move. Both of them were stunned. In the distance of the battlefield, Uchiha Madara, watching all of this, had already noticed through his Sharingan. This move is. In the Sharingan's insight, he clearly saw it. In that world of yellow sand, each grain of sand entered the bodies of these Iwagakure ninjas through breathing and sticking to their skin, and began to absorb the chakra of the Iwagakure ninjas. The Iwagakure ninjas couldn't sense it in a short time, because its effect was like a slow-acting poison, but Uchiha Madara didn't dare to underestimate it at all, because he also saw that the speed at which the chakra of these Iwagakure ninjas was being absorbed was getting faster and faster. Rosha's strange move suddenly plunged the entire battlefield into an eerie silence. These ninjas certainly felt that something was wrong, but the range of the yellow sand was simply too large, and coupled with the poor visibility around them, they began to lose their sense of direction and didn't know where to escape. Just then, a scream suddenly resounded throughout the battlefield. "Ah! Save! Save me!" Roshi and Han were both shocked. So were the other Iwagakure ninjas. They wanted to see what was happening. But the yellow sand obscured their vision, making them unable to see at all. At this moment, more and more screams rang out. "Ah! What is this? Can't move anymore. My body, chakra." In an instant, screams rose and fell on the entire battlefield, like a sheer hell, chilling the hearts of the survivors. What frightened Roshi and Han even more was that, along with the screams, the chakra representing the Iwagakure ninjas was disappearing in their perception. "Can't let this continue. Han, you blow away these sands first?" "Okay." Han, transformed into the Five Tails, immediately raised his forelimbs like a horse and stomped on the ground. Boom! Instantly, boiling steam erupted from the Five Tails' feet, surging towards the surroundings. Han obviously wanted to use the impact of the steam to blow away these sands, but the next scene stunned him as well. The white steam erupting from his feet, after falling into these yellow sands, seemed to be swallowed by half of the surrounding yellow sands, and disappeared directly. How is that possible? At this moment, the voice of the Four Tails, Son Goku, rang out in Roshi's heart again. "Idiot, can't you see? These sands are actually absorbing the power of chakra." What? After the Four Tails reminder, Roshi finally felt it. The chakra in his body was also being absorbed. However, compared to the huge size of the tailed beast, these sands were too small. The feeling was like mosquitoes sucking blood. After understanding what these sands were, Roshi had a solution. Countless chakras began to gather at the Four Tails' mouth, and soon a deep purple-tailed beast ball appeared. Then, the Four Tails raised its head high and blasted directly into the sky. The deep purple-tailed beast ball was like a meteor, flying into the sky, and then, boom! A huge mushroom cloud appeared in the sky, and the impact of the violent explosion swept around. Now, even if Rosha's sand absorbed chakra faster, it couldn't compare with the impact of the tailed beast ball explosion. In just an instant, the sky was blown clean of yellow sand. However, the scene that appeared where the Iwagakure ninjas were after the yellow sand was gone made Roshi and Han shrink their pupils. This. On the desolate Gobi, densely packed, cactus-like human-shaped sand sculptures had grown at some point. If you looked closely, you could see the distorted human faces in these sculptures covered by sand. And those surviving Iwagakure ninjas around them, after seeing this terrifying scene, all shrank their pupils, and their bodies began to tremble with fear, and some even. This? What kind of power is this? With just one blow, the Iwagakure ninjas lost at least 1/10 of their combat power. Although they were all genin and chunin, this hellish scene created a psychological shadow for the Iwagakure ninjas that could never be erased. They all looked at Rosha's figure in the distant sky with horrified eyes, all with the same thought. Is this a demon? But then, Rosha's words made their mood like a roller coaster, and the mood that had originally sunk to the bottom rose again. Don't worry, they are only controlled by my sand now. If treated properly, their lives will not be in danger. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. In the somewhat unbelievable gazes of all the Iwagakure ninjas, even Yekora and Mikawa behind Rosha, Rosha said calmly. I said, my appearance here is not because I like killing, but because the war forces me, as the Kazekage of Sunagakure, to appear here. So, now you still have a chance. Jinchuriki of the 4 tails and 5 tails, as long as you choose to surrender, and the Iwagakure ninjas choose to retreat, this war will end here. Rasa was not a man who liked to talk nonsense. Just like before he transmigrated to this world, he also hated the ubiquitous talk no jutsu in manga. But only when he was truly in this world, sitting in the position of Kazekage, did Rasa realize that talk no jutsu had its value. Because it is very difficult to rule by violence and fear alone. There are too many enemies you need to face. Perhaps you think you have powerful strength and don't need to be afraid at all. Just kill whoever doesn't listen. It's like the saying, if you can't solve the problem, then solve the person who creates the problem. But there is a problem. Solving the person who creates the problem does not mean the problem will disappear. It will only appear in another way. This is the reason why Rasa showed mercy to these Iwagakure ninja. After obtaining his current power, Rasa has a clearer idea of the path he will take next. That is to unify the ninja world. This is not because Rasa is a person who is so enthusiastic about power. He only has one goal in doing this, and that is to deal with the enemies that may appear in this world in the future. For example, the Otsutsuki clan. Therefore, he cannot kill these Iwagakure ninja. This may be a bit biased. Last time in the Land of Rivers, Rasa did not show mercy to the Konoha ninja either. That's right, Rasa doesn't want to deny it, he is just biased. But he also wants to defend himself a few words. That is because Rasa knows that he may eventually annex Iwagakure, Kumogakure, and even Kirigakure, but only Konoha has the least hope, because that is the village where the protagonist of this world is located. Turning the Hokage into the Kazekage is not impossible, but it is obviously more difficult than the other 3 villages. Then, uniting the majority that can be united and temporarily giving up on Konoha, which has relatively little hope, is the best choice for him. In addition, the balance of military power is also very important. Of course, this is not so easy. Just like now, upon hearing Rasa's words, Roshi and Han immediately roared angrily. This is absolutely impossible, Kazekage. Although I am very grateful for your mercy towards the ninja of our village, but, as I said before, there are only Iwagakure ninja who die in battle, and no Iwagakure ninja who surrender. However, it is not useless. At least Roshi's reaction is not as intense as it was at the beginning. Then, the next thing is a very important point. That is, what is the real talk no jutsu? The real talk no jutsu is not to think about persuading others with eloquence from the beginning, but to subdue the other party first, and then persuade the other party with a combination of stick and carrot. Is that so? Then, it's a pity. Next, I won't show mercy. As soon as he finished speaking, Rasa put his hands together. Seeing this scene, Roshi and Han's eyes narrowed. Sage art. Magnet release. Iron sand world descent. Boom. In an instant, the entire earth began to crack, and tsunami-like iron sand flew out from the ground, covering the sky and the sun, turning into sharp rhombus tentacles, attacking the 2-tailed beasts in the distance. Son Goku and Kakuo did not hesitate at all. At this moment, they simultaneously used the tailed beast's strongest ultimate skill, Tailed Beast Ball. 2 huge purple chakra balls, as big as half a basketball court, directly attacked the incoming iron sand. Boom! The violent explosion directly caused the earth to shatter and the sky to change color. The surrounding Iwagakure ninja could no longer maintain their figures under this violent impact. Seeing this, the Jonin in the village immediately ordered. Everyone, take your companions who have been petrified by the sand and retreat. Hey, in the distance, feeling the terrifying hot wind coming, White Zetsu also said. Madara-sama, should we retreat? If we continue to stay here, we will be affected by the subsequent battle. Interesting, at this moment, a hint of interest also appeared in Obito Uchiha's Sharingan. Although I don't want to admit it, but with this kid's current strength, my remnant body is really a bit helpless. It seems that the plan has to be changed. Let's go. In an instant, his body merged into the ground and disappeared. On the battlefield, the battle between Rasa and the two-tailed beasts finally officially began. Unlike the battle between Yokai, Miko, Roshi, and Han just now. Although that had already broken away from the height that ordinary ninja could reach in their lifetime, it was at least still within the scope of humans, but this time, the power displayed by Rasa and the two-tailed beasts had surpassed humans. Boom! 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 On the barren Gobi Desert, each tailed beast ball, which was enough to destroy a mountain and a village, burst out with tremendous destructive power that could change the terrain at will, constantly flashing. Correspondingly, there was the black iron sand, like the sea, which seemed to never be exhausted, dyeing this land into a dark black, turning it into a dark sea. When those powerful tailed beast balls encountered such a sea of black iron sand, they seemed to be like boats falling into the sea. After being swallowed, they quickly disappeared. The Iwagakure ninja who had already hid far away had only one thought when they saw this scene. God! This is the power that only God possesses. In the face of the power of God, even the two Jinchuriki-sama, who are tailed beasts, began to gradually become overwhelmed. Roshi and Han are not perfect Jinchuriki after all. Even if they were perfect Jinchuriki, facing the iron sand that could absorb their chakra and seemed to never be exhausted, they gradually became overwhelmed. It's almost time, feeling that there was not much chakra left in the bodies of these two Jinchuriki. It was also time for Rasa to use the sealing technique. Sage Art. Magnet Release. Thorn's sealing technique. The violet flower pattern representing Shukaku's sealing technique appeared on the iron sand, climbing along the iron sand tentacles to the bodies of the two huge-tailed beasts. Roshi and Han felt something was wrong at the first moment, but it was too late. Their huge size became moving targets. Thorn iron trees grew on their bodies, preventing the tailed beasts from moving, while also suppressing the tailed beast's chakra. Roshi and Han instantly felt that they had lost contact with the chakra of the tailed beasts in their bodies. Did I still fail? Feeling the blurriness of his consciousness, Roshi also sighed in his heart. This was definitely something they had not expected before they came. Just like they never expected that this young Kazekage would be so powerful. It seems that Onoki's plan has failed. Iwagakure can no longer stop the rise of Sunagakure. After the information about this battle is spread, I am afraid that no village will dare to rashly provoke Sunagakure again. However, that has nothing to do with him anymore. The battle ended, and the sealed bodies of Roshi and Han were sent to Rasa by the iron sand. He did not waste time, and looked at the Iwagakure ninja trembling in the distance. Go and tell your Tsuchikage Onoki that I will take the 4 tails and 5 tails away. If you want them back, let him come to our Sunagakure with sincerity. As soon as he finished speaking, Rasa took the 2 Jinchuriki, along with Yokai and Miko, and flew into the sky. Looking at Rasa leaving, the Iwagakure ninjas stared at each other, not knowing what to do for a while. A Jonin stood up and said, "This is no longer a battle we can interfere with. Let's set up camp here first, and then report everything that happened here to Tsuchikage-sama and wait for him to decide." Land of Fire, Hidden Leaf Village. Hokage Building. The moment he learned that war between the Hidden Sand Village and the Hidden Cloud and Hidden Stone villages was on the verge of erupting. Minato Namikaze, the current backbone of the Hidden Leaf, could no longer stay and train on Mount Myoboku. At this moment, inside the Hokage building, all the village's high-level officials were gathered. The atmosphere in the Hokage's office was extremely heavy. Everyone was waiting for news from the village's intelligence personnel regarding the battlefield. Because the outcome of this war would determine the future direction of the Hidden Leaf in this conflict. Now, everyone in the Hidden Leaf hoped that the war between the Hidden Sand Village and the Hidden Stone and Hidden Cloud villages would completely drag these 3 villages into the quagmire of war, so that the Hidden Leaf could truly rest easy. Moreover, they wouldn't have to wait long. In just a day or two, news should arrive from the front lines. Jiraiya, sitting next to Minato, asked rather casually, "How is it? Have you been home? Is Kushina angry?" Minato smiled somewhat awkwardly upon hearing this. Although he had been writing letters to Kushina through the frogs during his time on Mount Myoboku, it was impossible for Kushina not to harbor any resentment after being separated for so long. Just then, suddenly, clear footsteps came from outside, making the entire office quiet down again. Then, the door to the Hokage's office was pushed open, and Shikaku Nara, the current strategist of the Hokage, appeared. However, at this moment, the serious expression on Shikaku's face, as it fell into everyone's eyes, made everyone feel that something was wrong. What's wrong? Shikaku glanced at everyone in the office, then, regaining his composure, he came to Hiruzen Sarutobi, took out a scroll, and said, "Lord Hokage, this is the intelligence just received from the Hidden Stone Village, please take a look." Hiruzen Sarutobi frowned solemnly and took it. After glancing at Shikaku, he slowly opened it, and then his body trembled, and he roared in disbelief. "How is that possible? Has the information been confirmed?" Hiruzen Sarutobi's loss of composure immediately made everyone in the office feel that something was wrong. Shikaku nodded. "We have already confirmed it, there will be no problem. After all, it concerns the Jinchuriki, the Hidden Stone Village would not joke about this." Hiruzen Sarutobi's hand holding the scroll suddenly became forceful. At this time, Minato Namikaze, feeling a sense of unease, finally couldn't help but ask Shikaku. "Mr. Shikaku, what exactly is going on?" Shikaku glanced at the Hokage, and after seeing that he had no objections, he slowly said, "The news just received is that the Kazekage Rasa of the Hidden Sand Village, the Scorch Release user Pakura, and the Magnet Release user Mikawa have appeared in the Land of Birds, defeating the Hidden Stone Village's ninjas with overwhelming power, and capturing the Hidden Stone Village's 2 Jinchuriki, the 4-tailed Roshi and the 5-tailed Han." What? At this moment, everyone in the Hokage's office had a drastic change in expression. Danzo's reaction was the most intense, and he immediately roared angrily. "Don't talk nonsense, Shikaku, isn't the Hidden Sand Village's team in the Land of Rivers?" Yes, this was something that everyone had confirmed. Just then, only Minato understood something and said in a low voice, "Shikaku, are you saying that the Hidden Sand Village, with only 3 people, blocked the Hidden Stone Village's 6,000 ninja team and also captured 2 Jinchuriki?" Shikaku looked at everyone in the office whose pupils shrank sharply because of Minato's words, and nodded helplessly. "Yes, according to the intelligence from the Hidden Stone Village, the Kazekage Rasa of the Hidden Sand Village, the Scorch Release user Pakura, and the Magnet Release user Mikawa, displayed extraordinary power in this battle. Even the Jinchuriki's tailed beast ball was easily neutralized, especially the Kazekage Rasa, who in the final battle, fought 2 opponents alone and captured the 2 Jinchuriki with overwhelming power." Now, everyone in the Hokage's office trembled, their faces full of disbelief. What a joke, those are Jinchuriki, 1 against 2, and with overwhelming power, how is that possible? The only one who could do such a thing would be the first Hokage, right? Everyone spoke one after another, and all could feel the panic in everyone's words. At this time, the only ones who could calm down were Minato, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru. Interesting. Orochimaru, who knew some secrets, licked his lips somewhat excitedly. Jiraiya frowned tightly. Minato's eyes were also somewhat vacant at that moment, but he quickly returned to normal and said with a hint of admiration in his tone, "So that's it, is this the Kazekage's real plan, changing the landscape of this war with the power of 3 people? In that case, with the tailed beasts in hand, given the Tsuchikage's personality, the Hidden Stone Village probably won't attack the Hidden Leaf again. This completely breaks the alliance between the Hidden Stone Village and the Hidden Cloud Village. Next, the Hidden Sand Village will only need to face the Hidden Cloud Village. No. After this battle, with the power displayed by this Kazekage to suppress the 2-tailed beasts, even the Hidden Cloud Village wouldn't dare to act rashly, right?" Now, the entire Hokage's office fell silent once again. Because everyone was somewhat unable to see what the future of the ninja world would be like. Land of Rain. Under the pattering rain, as the leaders of the Akatsuki organization, Yahiko, Conan, and Nagato, were also looking at the intelligence they had received with disbelief. Not long ago, according to their agreement with the Hidden Sand Village, they were intercepting the Hidden Stone Village ninjas who wanted to pass through the Land of Rain. Of course, Yahiko only ordered the Akatsuki ninjas to secretly obstruct them, without engaging in direct conflict. After all, the Akatsuki ninjas were inferior to the Hidden Stone Village ninjas in both quantity and quality. Fortunately, the Akatsuki organization was relatively familiar with the geographical environment of the Land of Rain. However, even so, Yahiko was still somewhat worried that the conflict would escalate, causing the Akatsuki's comrades to die in this war. But unexpectedly, this group of Hidden Stone Village ninjas didn't even complete the normal journey before suddenly choosing to retreat. This made Yahiko and the others somewhat unable to understand, and they even thought it was a trick by the Hidden Stone Village. Until they received the latest intelligence. At this moment, looking at the overwhelming power displayed by the Kazekage on the intelligence, who had captured both Jinchuriki, the three were shocked. At the same time, Yahiko also recalled his past meeting with Rasa and the story that Master Jiraiya had once told them about the first Hokage Hashirama Senju pacifying the ninja world. Yahiko also had an idea and said, "Conan, Nagato, have you been to the Hidden Sand Village?" While the entire ninja world was shocked by the terrifying power displayed by the fourth Kazekage of the Hidden Sand Village, Rasa, the protagonist of the story, returned to the Hidden Sand Village, settled the two-tailed beasts, and went directly to Ryuchi Cave to meet the White Snake Sage. Ryuchi Cave in a dark cave. Following the report from Togoriheim, Rasa once again met the White Snake Sage. "Kazekage, I wonder what you want to see me for. Are you ready to accept the conditions I proposed earlier, and use your special power to turn the natural energy of our Ryuchi Cave into Sage Chakra?" Rasa shook his head, but still explained, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to refuse, but I have always believed that transactions should be conducted on the basis of equal strength between both parties." The White Snake Sage didn't show any dissatisfaction, but instead asked, "Oh, is Kazekage not satisfied with your current strength? I saw that even the 5 tails and 4 tails were easily sealed by you." "No. For me, among all the tailed beasts, only the 9 tails power is worth my attention. After all, that's a being who can take on 7 opponents with just half of the 9 tails." The White Snake Sage nodded in agreement. "So, what do you want from me?" Rasa directly asked without being polite. "I want to ask a question. I want to do something, but I don't want the Sage of the 6 Paths to sense it. Is there any way?" The White Snake Sage's eyes lit up, and immediately understanding Rasa's meaning, asked, "You want to attack the tailed beasts?" Rasa didn't deny it. "What, does the White Snake Sage think it's not possible?" The White Snake Sage finally seemed a bit more energetic and asked, "From my standpoint, of course I have no objections, but I don't recommend you do this." "Why?" "It's very simple. Ever since Hagoromo Otsutsuki replaced his mother and became the Jinchuriki of the 10 tails, and transmitted chakra to this world through the ninshu, as the owner of this chakra, Hagoromo Otsutsuki can observe any place in this world where chakra exists. So, he can't observe places without chakra. Theoretically, that's the case, but it's difficult to achieve. Take you as an example. Although there is no chakra in your body now, Hagoromo Otsutsuki cannot observe this world through you. But he can observe your every move through the chakra around you, your relatives, subordinates, and even ninja tools with chakra. If you want to attack the tailed beasts, even if you can bring them to a space without chakra, he can still know what you are doing through the tailed beast's chakra." Rasa frowned tightly. "Is there really no way?" The White Snake Sage pondered for a while. "It's not entirely impossible, unless your power in space-time surpasses Hagoromo Otsutsuki and you can create a world where chakra cannot reach." "Is there a way?" At this moment, the White Snake Sage's eyes looked at Rasa. "A way? Of course there is. Don't forget what I once told you about my abilities." Rasa immediately remembered that the White Snake Sage had said that its best ability was creating spaces. In the past, Rasa would naturally have hesitated a bit, but after interacting with Ryuchi Cave until now, the other party had shown enough goodwill. If he was still too suspicious now, it would indeed be a bit ungrateful. "Of course I remember, please enlighten me, White Snake Sage." "It's very simple, the key lies in the dragon transformation technique. Our Ryuchi Cave's dragon transformation technique can evolve the power of practitioners and grant them new power. There are 2 ways to obtain new power. One is through self-evolution, But such evolution is unknown, and it's impossible to determine what power will be obtained. The other is to provide a certain guidance. Our Ryuchi cave belongs to the second type, and the power of this guidance is the scales passed down by the white snake sages of each generation. Then how exactly do I do it? As long as you integrate the power in my scales into the dragon transformation technique, this power will sprout in your body like a seed, allowing you to master the power of space. Sunagaku. After returning from Ryuchi cave, Rasa directly summoned Maki and Hinoka. As soon as the two entered, Rasa didn't waste any time and immediately spoke to them. I have something I need you two to do. Maki's admiration and trust in Rasa had long been blind. Especially after seeing that Rasa had actually captured the 4 tails and 5 tails Jinchuriki from Iwagakure. He had become very excited. Hinoka then asked, "What is it?" Rasa directly used the summoning technique to summon 2 of the 9 puppets made by Chiyo, the 4 tails and 5 tails puppets. Hinoka, I need you to use the sealing technique to extract some tailed beast chakra from those 2 Jinchuriki and seal it into these 2 puppets respectively. Maki, you are responsible for assisting. Yes, sir. Maki immediately took the order. After the 2 Jinchuriki were captured, Rasa handed them over to the Anbu to guard. Although under the White Snake Sage's warning, Rasa dispelled his thoughts about the tailed beasts, this didn't mean that Rasa wasn't interested in the tailed beast's chakra. At least he was a bit interested in the 4 tails lava release and the 5 tails boil release. Hinoka curiously asked, "Can these puppets suppress the tailed beast's chakra?" Don't worry, the core of these puppets is the puppet insect made from my sage chakra. Suppressing the tailed beast's chakra is not a problem. By the way, be gentle when extracting the chakra, and don't let anything happen to these 2 guys, otherwise, Onoki, that old guy, might really try to fight me to the death. Okay. Maki nodded, although he felt it was a pity. He also understood that the 4 tails and 5 tails couldn't be swallowed by Sunagaku, and could only be used to contain Iwagakure. Alright, you guys go and get busy. After Maki and Hinoka left, Rasa also breathed a sigh of relief. The 4 tails and 5 tails being obtained meant that the initiative in this war was completely in Sunagakure's hands. Onoki would definitely not dare to act rashly. He wouldn't allow the Jinchuriki that Iwagakure had invested so much manpower and financial resources to create to disappear. Without Onoki, just the Kumogakure was not to be feared. Then, next, Sunagakure could completely jump out of this vortex of war and focus on developing the village. But Rasa couldn't really relax. Don't look at how he easily sealed the 4 tails and 5 tails in this battle. But not to mention how much power the 2-tailed beasts in the sealed state actually exerted. Even if it was really the complete body, the 1 tails to 7 tails couldn't compare to the 8 tails and 9 tails. Not to mention that this 9 tails only had half of it. Therefore, the current Rasa had no capital to be proud of. Next, he first went home. Because Chiyo, Ebizo, and Fukai had all gone to war, Hanataba rarely returned to the village. For her safety, Rasa had her and Karura live together temporarily. During this period, Karura's belly had grown bigger and she had morning sickness. Hanataba, who was originally a bit restrained, became excited after learning about Karura's pregnancy and consciously took on the task of taking care of Karura. After taking care of his wife, Rasa returned to the Dragon Oasis and began a new round of cultivation. The news of the capture of the 4-tailed Jinchuriki and the 5-tailed Jinchuriki from Iwagakure by the Kazekage of Sunagakure instantly put the entire ninja world, which was in the chaos of war, on pause. The Tsuchikage of Iwagakure was naturally furious upon receiving the news, but after venting his emotions, Onoki also chose the wisest course of action, immediately ordering the ninjas on the 2 battlefronts in the village to retreat 10 miles and cease their attacks on Sunagakure. Just as Rasa had predicted, Onoki didn't dare to gamble. If Iwagakure continued its attack, Sunagakure might choose to resort to desperate measures and directly kill the 2 Jinchuriki. Although the tailed beasts would not die, the losses caused to the village by the death of the Jinchuriki, as well as the cost of recapturing the 2-tailed beasts, were not something that Iwagakure could accept at the moment. Especially during such a chaotic time in the Great Ninja War. A single misstep could plunge Iwagakure into eternal doom. After receiving the news, the third Raikage of Kumogakure also made the same choice immediately, and quickly ordered the eight-tailed Jinchuriki, who was still on the battlefield, to be recalled to the village. Although Kumogakure had not suffered any losses, firstly, it had lost its ally Iwagakure and needed to face Sanagakure alone, and secondly, the power displayed by Sanagakure made him extremely wary. In particular, the appearance of the Scorch-release ninja Pakura and the magnetic-release ninja Mikawa in the Land of Rivers after capturing the 4 tails and 5 tails made the third Raikage feel that Kumogakure had no chance of winning. Unlike the anger and unwillingness of the Iwagakure and Kumogakure ninjas, Sanagakure had no intention of concealing the news. Therefore, the ninjas and civilians of Sanagakure were plunged into a state of great excitement upon receiving the news. Whether it was the power displayed by the Kazekage, Pakura, and Mikawa, or the possibility of avoiding the continuation of the war, everyone's admiration for the three reached its peak, and the entire Sanagakure was plunged into a lively and joyful atmosphere. This forced those ill-intentioned individuals hiding in Sanagakure to re-submerge themselves, feeling unwilling and terrified at the same time. Dash 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 dash. Dragon Oasis. The location of the Divine Tree. Unlike the Divine Tree transformed from the 10 tails in memory, this divine tree in the Dragon Oasis does not seem to have become larger due to the increase in chakra. In fact, compared to the thick trees in the entire Dragon Oasis, it is considered small. If it weren't for the surrounding ceiling formulas and sculptures, it would be difficult to distinguish it from the surrounding trees. Rasa is not sure whether this is due to the surrounding ceiling formulas, or the container teapot below it restricting growth, or whether the chakra Rasa is currently giving it is insufficient. However, he didn't feel any dissatisfaction, so he didn't care. And Rasa came here today for only one purpose, which is to use the power of the divine tree he created to cultivate. Thinking of this, Rasa took out a scroll from his pocket. As the ceiling formula on it was unsealed, a palm-sized, jade-white scale appeared in front of him. This is the scale given to Rasa by the White Snake Sage, which contains the power of the Ryuchi cave space. Although this scale is small, Rasa can feel the surging natural energy inside. Without the slightest hesitation, Rasa raised his right hand and aimed the open black lens bracket Karma close black lens bracket at the white scale. Instantly, the natural force on the scale was attracted by the open black lens bracket Karma close black lens bracket's huge suction force, and the surging natural energy turned into a white giant python and flew into the open black lens bracket Karma close black lens bracket. Along with this natural energy from the White Snake Sage, integrated into Rasa's body through the ability of open black lens bracket Karma close black lens bracket, Rasa instantly felt a new force slowly emerging in his heart. At the same time, he found that his perception ability was rapidly spreading towards the surroundings, with an increasingly wide range. Is this the so-called spatial ability of the White Snake Sage? At this moment, Rasa's weakest perception ability was also rapidly compensated. The perception range quickly increased from the initial 1 kilometer to 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers. Even more terrifying is that, at this moment, what he improved was not only the perception range, but also the grass and trees within the perception range became clearer and clearer, and the closer the distance, the clearer. Just like that, Rasa closed his eyes and slowly experienced the newly acquired ability. After about half an hour, he slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, his perception ability has surpassed the Uzumaki clan's strongest perception ability, Kagura Shingen. Everything within a 10-kilometer radius centered on him, including chakra, natural energy, and sage chakra. He can clearly sense the opponent's position, energy size, and even chakra attributes. And beyond the 10-kilometer range, although it is not as clear as within 10 kilometers, he can still vaguely sense the opponent's location. This distance is about 100 kilometers. This is the range centered on him. If starting from Rasa, it is a straight line of 200 kilometers. However, Rasa is still not too satisfied, because he clearly remembers that in the later stages of Naruto, taking Hashirama and Tobirama as examples, they in the Uzushiogakure village could sense Madara far away on the battlefield, and that distance was at least over 1,000 kilometers. Of course, for the current Rasa, the most important thing about this ability is that he can prevent black Zetsu and white Zetsu from monitoring him. Just then, Rasa, sensing something, disappeared with a body flicker technique. When he reappeared, he had already arrived in Chio's laboratory in the Dragon Oasis. This is, as Rasa injected sage chakra into these experimental subjects from Iwagakure ninjas. 6 white Zetsu bodies emerged from the bodies of these experimental subjects. Seeing Rasa, who had captured them, these white Zetsu were filled with horror. How is this possible? So that's it, sport technique. It's a pity, not the level of white Zetsu like Tobi. However, such precious research materials cannot be wasted. Rasa didn't give them time to react at all, and directly sealed them with magnet release and stored them in the scroll. As for the fact that white Zetsu actually appeared here, Rasa was not too surprised. On the contrary, it would be strange if they didn't appear. Moreover, with his current strength and Madara's old and weak body, Rasa is really not too worried. It's black Zetsu instead. After solving the white Zetsu, Rasa returned to the bottom of the divine tree. The newly obtained spatial power is indeed a surprise to him, but if he wants to use this to directly cultivate the dragon transformation secret technique of Ryuchi Cave, Rasa is still a little uneasy. He wants to add a layer of insurance to himself. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated. He directly placed his hands on the trunk of the divine tree. The divine tree seemed to sense his thoughts, and a suction force came, absorbing all the power Rasa had just obtained into his body. Before long, a brand new fruit appeared on the crown of the tree. Seeing this scene, Rasa nodded in satisfaction. At the same time, recalling the words that the white snake sage had told him. As long as it is a normal person, they should not like being monitored everywhere. After this war is over, perhaps he can start trying to let the people around him also abandon the power of chakra. After making a plan in his heart, Rasa did not waste any time and picked the new fruit and ate it. And at the moment of eating it, Rasa, who originally did not expect anything, suddenly felt a strange and wonderful change in his body. Rasa can clearly feel what this is. That is the power of precognition, which Rasa has never used so far, obtained from the priestesses of the land of demons. In the land of demons, during the battle with Mo Ryo, Rasa reaped a bountiful harvest. Besides gaining control of a different dimension the size of the hidden sand village from Mo Ryo, he also obtained Mo Ryo's ability to create puppet insects, possess, and control puppets. But his gains didn't stop there. Don't forget that during that battle, Rasa also received a gift from the priestesses of the land of demons. The ability the priestesses gifted was simple, precognition. This might sound like a powerful ability, and in truth, it is, but it also comes with a limitation. That is, the current Rasa can only use precognition to see his own death. Yes, not to foresee danger, but to foresee death. And it can only foresee his own death. This seems like a rather useless ability. Because as soon as he senses a danger that could lead to death, at that point, Rasa might not even have a solution. Moreover, if there is no danger of death, Rasa's ability is essentially useless. Fortunately, Rasa quickly discovered another reverse application of this ability. That is, as long as the precognition ability doesn't activate, it means that everything he is doing now will not pose a life-threatening danger to him in the short term. This is also why Rasa dares to act against the 4 tails and 5 tails now. Because, in the current ninja world, only a few people can bring the danger of death to Rasa. In fact, the ones he truly fears are Black Zetsu, the Sage of the 6 Paths, and the Otsutsuki clan. Now that he is acting against the 2-tailed beasts, but the precognition ability hasn't warned him, doesn't this mean that his actions to capture the tailed beasts haven't provoked a strong reaction from these people? Now, the precognition ability suddenly has an anomaly, but it's not a precognition of danger, but another kind of peculiar feeling. Rasa quickly arrived at the source of this anomaly. It was Mo Ryo's space. When Rasa arrived here, the scene before him widened his eyes. In the originally lifeless Yellow Springs world, the size of the hidden sand village, the green sage chakra energy that originally floated faintly in this world like mist suddenly underwent a peculiar change. This change was very magical. It couldn't be seen with the naked eye at all, but it could only be discovered through perception. These sage chakra energies seemed to be merging. Yes, merging. These sage chakra energies were merging into the space created by Mo Ryo, and the result was that Mo Ryo's world was slowly growing larger, and at the same time, Rasa felt that this lifeless world began to have a flowing aura, not the flow of sage chakra energy, but a flow like time itself. Time. For some reason, Rasa suddenly thought of something. The priestess represents the power of precognition of time. The power of space possessed by the white snake sage's scales. Plus the space created by Mo Ryo. These three forces converged at this moment, seemingly reaching a certain opportunity, and began to merge together. Finally converging into the power of space-time. This is the power of creation. Thinking of this possibility, Rasa became excited. Without the slightest hesitation, he began to frantically absorb the sage chakra energy from the outside world. Sure enough, as more and more sage chakra energy poured in, the rate of change in the entire Mo Ryo world became faster and faster. However, Rasa quickly became a little dissatisfied. Too slow, although it was indeed changing, this change was really too weak. Rasa could also understand, just like how he absorbed sage chakra energy. Although all the sage chakra energy in this world so far has been purified by him, he is not the master of these sage chakra energies. These sage chakra energies originally belonged to this world. Although he has a unique connection with these sage chakra energies, there is a limit to the speed at which he absorbs sage chakra energy. Moreover, it was obvious that the more sage chakra energy he purified, the faster the absorption rate. In other words, is he still going to attack the tailed beasts? Now Rasa was in an awkward situation. If he doesn't attack the tailed beasts, his current strength will fall into a bottleneck, but attacking the tailed beasts will easily attract trouble. What should I do? If he thinks carefully, the large chakra or natural energy aggregates he knows now, besides the three great sage lands, are the 0 tails of the Sky Ninja Village, known as the Tailless Beast, and the 6 Paths Ninja Tool of the Grass Country, the Paradise Box. No, there is also the Otsutsuki Hamura clan on the moon. But among these things, he can't do anything except for the 0 tails. And he still needs the Sky Ninja Village to do things for him. Rasa thought for a long time and decided to wait. Some things can't be rushed. Thinking of this, Rasa could only suppress his somewhat anxious mood and began to think about another thing. Now that the Mo Ryo space has undergone such changes, what about the sage chakra energy in the gourd seal? Rasa immediately transferred his consciousness to the gourd seal space. Then, he saw a scene that surprised him. Although from the naked eye, the center of this space, as the essence of the dragon transformation secret technique, the central sage chakra energy aggregate like a Rinnegan has not changed. Rasa can still feel that there seems to be some power in these sage chakra energies through perception. But what this power is, I'm afraid only using it will reveal it. Thinking of this, he didn't waste any time. His consciousness withdrew from the gourd seal and returned to the Mo Ryo space. His hands formed seals, and the seal on his chest was released, and the sage chakra energy in the gourd seal was released. It flowed from Rasa's chest towards Rasa's limbs. Just when Rasa didn't feel that these energies seemed to have anything special about them, Rasa felt a familiar anomaly coming from his right hand. That was the open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket. The last time this anomaly came, it was when he absorbed the Hashirama cell chakra in Danzo's arm. He opened his eyes and looked at his right hand. He saw another black line extending from a corner of the open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket rhombus in his palm, and finally forming a black dot on the left side of the base of his thumb. And at the moment when the dot appeared, a strange feeling came. He was no stranger to this feeling. This is the feeling that only occurs when someone uses reverse summoning jutsu to summon him. But in the current ninja world, only Ryuchi Cave, which has signed a contract, can use reverse summoning jutsu to summon Rasa. But this feeling is not pure Ryuchi cave natural energy, it is mixed with a very unfamiliar evil chakra. What's going on? Of course, Rasa was unwilling to accept this inexplicable summoning, but first, his precognition ability didn't tell him that danger was coming, and second, this strange summoning was related to his golden finger, and finally, he was also very curious about who summoned him. So, this time he did not refuse. Boom! Along with the rising white mist, Rasa disappeared from the spot. And when Rasa opened his eyes again, he found himself in a dark, cramped space, and his body actually had a feeling of losing control. Outside, there was a ding-dong sound like a kunai. What's going on? Although he didn't know what was going on, Rasa still hated this feeling of being restrained and prepared to break through this space directly. But at this moment, he found that the sage chakra energy in his body had disappeared, replaced by a chakra that had become somewhat unfamiliar. Leaf Village, Year 64. The Leaf Village, in conjunction with the Sand Village, is holding the Chunin exams. After a morning of thrilling battles, the Chunin exams have finally reached the highly anticipated key match. That is the contest between Sasuke Uchiha, the orphan of the Uchiha clan from the Leaf Village, and Gaara, the son of the fourth Kazekage Rasa of the Sand Village. The battle did not disappoint the guests who had traveled from afar to watch, with dazzling ninjutsu combat drawing cheers from everyone present. However, just as the battle was about to reach its conclusion, a sudden change occurred. First, a wide-ranging genjutsu descended from the sky, causing the vast majority of the audience to fall into a deep sleep. Then, the Sand Village ninjas, who were supposed to be allies, suddenly turned against them. Finally, on the observation platform, the fourth Kazekage of the Sand Village suddenly launched an attack on the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, taking him hostage. Hiruzen Sarutobi quickly understood the reason for the Sand Village's betrayal. The man who should have been the Kazekage of the Sand Village removed his hat and tore off his mask, revealing the face of his most beloved disciple, Leaf Village S-rank rogue ninja, and one of the legendary Sannin, Orochimaru. After the Sound Ninja 4, disguised as Kazekage's bodyguards, cast the four violet flames formation, giving Orochimaru and the third Hokage a battlefield free from interference. Orochimaru finally revealed his true target, which was Sasuke Uchiha. Hiruzen Sarutobi naturally would not let Orochimaru have his way. After a brief exchange of blows, Orochimaru finally unleashed the ninjutsu he had prepared to kill his teacher. Summoning Jutsu. Impure World Reincarnation. What? Looking at the three coffins rising from the ground with the characters, 1st, 2nd, and 4th, written on them. Hiruzen Sarutobi, realizing what Orochimaru was doing, immediately formed hand seals, trying to stop Orochimaru. But the coffins of the 1st and 2nd Hokage had already been summoned. Hiruzen Sarutobi could only try his best to prevent the coffin with the character 4 from being summoned. Just as Hiruzen Sarutobi was about to succeed, the coffin with the character 4, which seemed to be failing to summon, stopped halfway, as if it were about to return to where it came from. Did I succeed? But before Hiruzen Sarutobi could rejoice, he discovered that the third coffin, which had seemed to fail, had actually risen again, blocking the front. Did I still fail? At this moment, Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression was unsightly. Orochimaru, hiding behind the coffin, licked his lips, revealing a triumphant smile. To have the Hokage die at the hands of the Hokage was simply too amusing. Just then, the lids of the three coffins slowly opened and crashed heavily to the ground, revealing the figures of three powerful ninjas. Could it be? Those two are? Who are they? Those are the first Hokage and second Hokage who founded our Leaf Village. What? Who is that third one? That's actually the fourth Kazekage of the Sand Village. Orochimaru actually killed the Kazekage of the Sand Village. At that moment, Hiruzen Sarutobi, watching the first Hokage Hashirama Senju, the second Hokage Tobirama Senju, and the fourth Kazekage Rasa emerge from the coffins, completely understood. Hiruzen Sarutobi certainly did not believe that the fourth coffin with the character 4 contained the fourth Hokage of the village, Minato Namikaze, because his soul was still in the belly of the Shinigami. And on such an important stage, Orochimaru could not possibly have come unprepared, not even knowing whether he could reincarnate the fourth Hokage. At this time, the first and second Hokage, summoned by impure world reincarnation, regained consciousness, felt their bodies, and looked at Orochimaru behind them, also understanding what had happened. So that's how it is, impure world reincarnation, to actually use this forbidden technique to summon us. You're truly an extraordinary young man. The second Hokage felt his body and made a sound familiar to Hiruzen Sarutobi. The first Hokage also said somewhat helplessly, "Indeed, no matter which world, war always exists." Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression was unsightly at this time, and he angrily shouted at Orochimaru. "Orochimaru, you are actually playing with the souls of the dead, unforgivable, teacher, and first Hokage-sama. I never thought I would meet the two of you in this state." Tobirama Senju, hearing the familiar voice, also looked over. "Hiruzen, is that you? Have you gotten so old? Oh, Sarutobi, long time no see." Orochimaru licked his lips, and could not wait to take out 2 kunai with seals from his pocket, inserting them into the brains of the 2 Hokage, completely controlling the 2 Hokage. "You old guys should stop chatting and start fighting quickly." The 2 Hokage immediately slowly lost consciousness, only having time to leave a word. "I'm truly sorry, Hiruzen." Hiruzen Sarutobi immediately became vigilant. Just then, Orochimaru took out another kunai, preparing to control the 4th Kazekage standing in the front. It's no wonder that everyone present ignored this Kazekage. After all, this Kazekage, who was reincarnated by impure world reincarnation, was completely an outsider in front of the 3 Hokage and the complex relationship between teacher and disciple. Moreover, in Orochimaru's view, compared to the 2 Hokage, this newly created Kazekage impure world reincarnation body was indeed a bit weak, and even had not regained consciousness. But just as Orochimaru came behind the Kazekage, preparing to use a special kunai to control this Kazekage as well. Suddenly, this Kazekage moved on his own, starting to form hand seals. Impure world reincarnation release. Then, before Orochimaru could react, countless grains of sand burst out from under the Kazekage's feet, turning into blades, directly cutting Orochimaru in half. What? At that moment, Orochimaru's pupils shrank sharply, his eyes filled with disbelief. Because he clearly felt that this 4th Kazekage, who was killed by him and made into an impure world reincarnation body, had actually broken free from control. What shocked by this scene was not only Orochimaru, but also Hiruzen Sarutobi in the distance, as well as the surrounding sound ninja guards and Leaf Village Anbu, whose expressions changed drastically. "Orochimaru-sama, what is this?" This attack, of course, could not harm Orochimaru. Countless small snakes flew out of Orochimaru's body, which had been cut in half, intertwining together, merging his divided body once again. But this sudden accident made Orochimaru dare not be careless, and directly chose to retreat. Fortunately, the sand gold did not pursue him. After reaching a safe distance, Orochimaru frowned, looking at the Kazekage standing there, seemingly feeling his new body, his face full of incomprehension. What's going on? This sudden change made the atmosphere within the entire barrier become strange. Everyone's eyes were on this 4th Kazekage who suddenly erupted. Just as the air was quiet enough to make everyone uneasy, this Kazekage finally raised his head, his gaze looking at everyone around him, and finally falling on Orochimaru, slowly opening his mouth. Impure world reincarnation? Interesting. Then, once again beyond everyone's expectations, he grabbed the head of the first Hokage with one hand. What? Orochimaru immediately felt bad, wanting to control the first Hokage to retreat, but found that he could not control the first Hokage at all. Then, he saw an even more shocking scene. Visibly to the naked eye, the first Hokage's soul seemed to fly out, turning into strands of chakra, constantly being absorbed by this impure world reincarnation Kazekage. Although Orochimaru still did not know what was going on at this moment, he quickly reacted. Water release. Water severing wave. The second Hokage, Tobirama Senju, instantly cast a water release ninjutsu, spitting out a high-pressure water line, aiming to strike the Kazekage who was absorbing Hashirama's chakra. Although somewhat regretful, Rasa still released the soul of the first Hokage, while his body retreated rapidly. The first Hokage's soul then flew back into the reanimation body. Seeing this, Orochimaru immediately mobilized the reanimation of the two Hokage to stand before him. However, he still dared not relax, watching vigilantly the suddenly uncontrolled reanimation Kazekage in front of him. Too strange? As the caster of the reanimation jutsu, Orochimaru certainly knew that as long as one knew the correct hand seals, the summoner of the reanimation could actively undo the summoning contract and regain control. This was also why he was so eager to control the first and second Hokage. But why did this Kazekage from Sanagakure know these hand seals? Moreover, he could be sure that the Kazekage's ability to absorb chakra just now was definitely not something he possessed. Otherwise, he should have demonstrated it in the previous battles. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with doubt. However, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was not far away, seemed to see an opportunity and immediately shouted, "Kazekage, I am the Hokage. It seems you were also killed by Orochimaru. Now Sanagakure is controlled by Orochimaru and is attacking Konoha. We must join forces to defeat Orochimaru in order to save both villages." Orochimaru's words made the surrounding Anbu light up. That's right, if the two Kage joined forces, even if Orochimaru controlled the two Hokage, they would still have a chance to fight. Orochimaru said nothing, only frowning, watching the Kazekage who was still admiring his new body. Hiruzen Sarutobi thought that the other party had just been summoned and had not completely regained his senses, and was about to shout a few more times, but the Kazekage finally put down his hands, turned his head to look outside the barrier, and said lightly, "No, I refuse, this is your Konoha's business." After saying that, Rasa walked slowly to the side of the four violet flames formation barrier. In everyone's unbelievable gaze, he formed hand seals. Four violet flames formation open. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. They saw that the four violet flames formation actually opened a small door, and Rasa, as the Kazekage, walked directly out like this, and then the barrier closed again. This scene stunned everyone around, and Orochimaru seemed even more surprised and doubtful. Knowing the method to undo the reanimation jutsu was one thing, but even knowing the four violet flames formation. But at this moment, Rasa didn't bother to pay attention to them at all. Walking out of the barrier, Rasa looked at the unfamiliar yet familiar arena in front of him, as well as the protagonists who should have appeared more than 10 years later. His heart was filled with emotion as he looked at the changing open black lens bracket karma closed black lens bracket in his hand. So that's it, is this the power of space-time? It actually brought me to the future, no. Looking at the scene in front of him that was exactly the same as the plot, Rasa understood. This is not the future, but the second Naruto world. Interesting, doesn't that mean I can do whatever I want in this world? Anyway, if something goes wrong, I can just undo the reanimation and return to my own world. Even the Sage of Six Paths can't control parallel worlds, right? However, before that, there were two things he had to do. He had just sensed it. Although he seemed to have come to a parallel world through the power of space-time, he could still sense the Yellow Springs world and the gourd ceiling space, which also possessed the power of space-time. However, as a reanimation body, he could not use Sage Art Chakra, so he could not open these two spaces. The current him, like when he first came to this world, could only use chakra. In other words, he must first regain Sage Art Chakra. Fortunately, with the experience of the original world, this time he knew what to do. He only needed to replant a divine tree and replace the chakra in his body. He just didn't know if a reanimation body could do it. However, since the open black lens bracket karma closed black lens bracket still existed, there should be no problem. He originally planned to directly target his son Gaara in this world, or the Nine Tails chakra, but firstly, both of them seemed to have left Konoha village, and secondly, when he had just absorbed some of Hashirama's chakra, although it was too weak to allow him to regain the power of wood release, he also sensed something, coupled with the perception ability given to him by the power of space-time. His gaze looked in a direction of Konoha. That mass of chakra that was even larger than a tailed beast should be where Hashirama's body was. Using Hashirama's power as the seed of his new divine tree should be perfect. As for the other thing, inside the final venue, After letting Temari and Kankuro take Gaara away, Maki, as the head of the Anbu, stayed here to execute the Kazekage Sama's Konoha crush plan, and fought with Hayate Gecko, a Jonin who stayed here. He certainly saw the barrier appearing on the observation deck in the distance. However, not knowing the specific situation inside, he thought that the one fighting the Hokage was his own Kazekage. Since his own Kazekage was fighting with Konoha's Hokage, then he, the head of the Anbu, could not retreat. He immediately fought with this Konoha village Jonin, and the two fought fiercely. But just then, suddenly, a stream of gold sand attacked, separating the two directly. Boom! Both of them who were knocked away by the gold sand were shocked, and then both of them saw the familiar figure standing in the center. Kazekage Sama. Maki was shocked, but then he quickly saw the strange appearance of his Kazekage. Hayate Gecko was also shocked to see the Sanagakure Kazekage appearing in front of him. The terrifying aura made him break out in a cold sweat. However, if the Kazekage appeared here, then who was the person fighting Hokage-sama on the observation deck? Rasa didn't even look at this Konoha ninja, and directly ordered Maki. Maki, immediately pass down my order. Our Sanagakure's cooperation with Orochimaru is over. Sanagakure ninjas immediately leave Konoha and return to the village. Although this was a parallel world, since he had come, he would naturally not sit idly by and ignore Sanagakure. Quote exclamation mark. Quote. Maki was shocked, but immediately nodded in agreement, and his figure disappeared in place. Seeing this, Rasa didn't pay attention to Hayate Gecko on the side at all, and his figure also turned into sand and dissipated. Konoha, where Root is located. Although the outside world was in an uproar, Danzo, as the leader of Root, was sitting firmly in the Daiyutai, guarding here. Even not a single Root ninja was dispatched. Why Orochimaru could invade Konoha so easily, of course, was inseparable from the help of Danzo, the collaborator. As long as Hiruzen Sarutobi died, Konoha would be without a leader, and he could naturally sit on the Hokage position. But just when he was confident in everything, suddenly, the alarm sounded in the Root base. What's going on? Danzo frowned. A Root quickly stepped forward to report. It's not good, Danzo-sama, Root is under attack. Who is so ignorant of life and death? It's the fourth Kazekage of Sanagakure. What? When Danzo walked out of his residence and arrived at the Root base outside, he saw the sky filled with gold dust, like a sea, surging towards the Root base. All the Root ninjas of the organization were swallowed by this gold dust. As expected, this ability to control gold dust can only be done by the fourth Kazekage of Sanagakure. But, strange, didn't Orochimaru say that the fourth Kazekage had already been killed by him? And why is he invading Root? Danzo couldn't understand at all. Just then, a ninja wearing a black mask descended from the sky. He was one of Danzo's right-hand men, Torun Aburame from the Aburame clan. What's going on? Why is the fourth Kazekage here? Danzo asked coldly, and Torun knelt on the ground, answering. Reporting to Lord Danzo, according to the information just received, Orochimaru used the impure world reincarnation technique to summon the first Hokage, the second Hokage, and the fourth Kazekage of Sanagakure, but the technique had an accident. The fourth Kazekage broke free from Orochimaru's control and escaped from the barrier. Danzo was also shocked, then narrowed his eyes, looking at the Root base that had been covered by gold dust, and said in a low voice. Impure world reincarnation, teacher's forbidden technique, that Orochimaru. But, the fourth Kazekage was able to escape control, how did he do it? No. It doesn't matter, where's the wind? As soon as he finished speaking, another figure with orange hair, wearing a Konoha forehead protector, and carrying a short knife on his back appeared. He was Danzo's other right-hand man, Yamanaka from the Yamanaka clan. Have you found the Kazekage's trail? The reason Danzo asked this was because Yamanaka was one of the very few sensory ninjas in the entire Root. Unfortunately, Yamanaka shook his head and said while kneeling on the ground. I'm sorry, Lord Danzo, these gold dusts are filled with a large amount of chakra, interfering with my sensory abilities. Danzo's expression became even more gloomy. Is that so? It seems that this Kazekage came prepared. But why didn't he go to Orochimaru for revenge, and instead came to our route? This question also puzzled the surrounding route members. Go. Find this Kazekage for me. Also, bring members of the Sealing Squad. He is now an impure world reincarnation body. Ordinary techniques cannot destroy him, only sealing techniques. Yes. The root ninjas immediately dispersed, searching for Rasa's traces throughout the root base. Meanwhile, Rasa had already arrived at his destination. The sky-filled gold dust pouring into the root base allowed Rasa to fully understand the internal structure of the root organization's base. Then, with his current sensory abilities and the ability to travel through gold dust, he quickly found his target. This was a huge cave hidden beneath the root organization's base. A huge stone blocked the way, covered with various sealing techniques. Moreover, Rasa was very familiar with these sealing techniques. They were all from the Uzumaki clan. It seemed that Mito Uzumaki, Hashirama's wife, had personally arranged them after his death. From these techniques, it could be seen that Mito Uzumaki's talent in sealing techniques was much better than Hinoka's. Unfortunately, Rasa had no intention of studying these sealing techniques. He was short on time, so he could only break them by force. Thinking of this, he directly formed hand seals. Although he hadn't used ninjutsu for more than a year, he was still very skilled at performing them now. 4 sand clones rose from Rasa's side. You guard the surroundings. After giving the order, Rasa walked to the huge stone and directly pressed his right palm on the seals. Instantly, the huge attraction of the open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket directly absorbed the seals on these sealing techniques. Before long, the huge stone in front of him made a rumbling sound and slowly moved away. When Rasa walked in, he could see a huge cave. Sunlight shone down from the cave above, scattering on a huge tree below. The tree's trunk was so thick, as if it had lived for thousands of years, with a circumference of a dozen people. The canopy was like a giant green umbrella, covering everything around it. And at the very bottom of this tree, there was a small shrine. The body of Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, who had been dead for decades but was still lifelike, was placed there. And upon closer inspection, it could be seen that his body was actually integrated with this giant tree. Although he had been dead for many years, the chakra he emitted still made Rasa feel thrilled. Ordinary tailed beasts were far inferior. This familiar feeling also confirmed the idea in Rasa's mind. As expected, Hashirama Senju's power is not ordinary wood release, but the power of the god tree, or rather the power of the 10 tails. It can be said that Hashirama Senju is a living 10 tails. However, now all of this would be cheaper for Rasa. Konoha. The venue for the Chunin exams. Rasa's unexpected appearance, although causing Orochimaru to have many doubts and curiosities, would not affect his purpose this time. This time, his only goal was to kill his beloved teacher, the third Hokage. However, on other battlefields in Konoha village, the sudden withdrawal of Tsunagakure still had a great impact. Although Konoha was now dilapidated, it was still not something Tsunagakure and Otogakure could compare to. Not to mention that Tsunagakure was even more dilapidated. Therefore, after the Tsunagakure ninjas withdrew from the battlefield, the Otogakure ninjas were unable to support themselves and were no match for the Konoha ninjas. In addition, Jiraiya, one of the Sannin, secretly took action. After experiencing the initial panic, the Konoha ninjas quickly stabilized the situation within the village. Inside the examination hall, Kakashi, as the teacher of Naruto and the others, naturally witnessed everything with the insight of the Sharingan. After seeing the Kazekage order the Tsunagakure ninjas to withdraw, although he was a little puzzled, he was relieved. Only Guy, who was single-minded, didn't know what was happening. After kicking away an Otogakure ninja, he came to Kakashi and asked anxiously. Kakashi, what's going on? Why did the Tsunagakure ninjas suddenly withdraw? Kakashi's Sharingan was constantly watching the battle inside the barrier not far away, and said calmly. It was the Kazekage of Tsunagakure who issued the order. They terminated their cooperation with Orochimaru and withdrew. That's great. Guy breathed a sigh of relief, but quickly reacted and looked at the barrier not far away, saying. The Kazekage has withdrawn, so who is fighting the third Hokage? Kakashi said with a gloomy face, uttering the name that made Guy's expression change drastically. Orochimaru. What? At this time, Naruto, Sakura, and Shikamaru, who had awakened from the genjutsu, also came to Kakashi and Guy. Kakashi-sensei. Guy-sensei. What exactly is going on? Faced with everyone's questioning gazes, Kakashi simply said, "It's okay, the Sanagakure ninjas have already withdrawn. The Otogakure are not worth worrying about. Next, let's watch the Hokage's battle." But as soon as Kakashi finished speaking, looking at the group of children in front of him, he felt something was wrong. After carefully looking at them again, he immediately asked anxiously, "Where's Sasuke?" As soon as these words came out, Naruto and Sakura in the room realized that Sasuke was indeed missing. At this time, Hayate Gecko appeared next to everyone in a flash, with a somewhat unsightly expression, and said, "I'm sorry, Kakashi-senpai, I just asked Sasuke to pursue Gaara and the others from Sunagakure." For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.